Huaijiang, what do you think of our decision? In the imperial garden, winter sweet were beginning to blossom, as Emperor Ning and Gu Huaijiang walked side by side among them. Gu Huaijiang was a person with a military background, and his body was not afraid of the cold. In addition to this, with the medicine prescribed by Yu Fu, he was even more robust during the cold days. Emperor Ning, however, could not take it. He was getting old and spent his days in the palace enjoying his powerful position. Whenever he went out into the cold, his body would begin to tremble. Gu Huaijiang could see that he was cold and retrieved a bright yellow cloak from eunuch Gao, then personally draped it on his back. Emperor Ning turned to glance at him, and Gu Huaijiang's hand froze before continuing to tie the cloak for him. Emperor Ning laughed and said, "We are already wearing a coat, and now you're adding a cloak on for us. This makes it look like we are very afraid of the cold." Gu Huaijiang said, "This subject knows that your majesty is not afraid of the cold, but the winter sweet are starting to blossom, thus there is not enough warmth underfoot. This is just a small gesture of this subject's consideration. I hope that your majesty will not refuse." He always knew how to give face to Emperor Ning. Emperor Ning nodded his head. "The question that we asked you, you still have not given an answer." Gu Huaijiang said, "Your Majesty was already planning to cultivate Yin Shuo with hopes of having him take over Prime Minister Yin's position. Now, it's just that Prime Minister Yin left the court a little early. When it comes to your Majesty's plans, it has no effect." Emperor Ning sighed, "That's right. We made this decision long ago. It's not an arrangement that came to me overnight. If the eldest prince and the second prince see this matter as clearly as you do, there would be no need for the competition to get like this." He reached out and felt the winter sweet. Though the frost-covered buds were small, they were quite lively. Emperor Ning liked them and waved eunuch Gao over, "Have someone pick a few of the nicer ones and send them to Imperial Consort Xian in a nice vase. We said a few things that were not too nice a few days ago. It would not be good to hurt her." Eunuch Gao saw that nobody else was around and covered up a smile. "Your Majesty, there's no need to worry. Her Highness Imperial Consort Xian has always loved your Majesty the most. How could she possibly get mad at your Majesty? You're the only one who speaks so much." Emperor Ning gave him a quick scolding, but a smile appeared on his face. He looked toward Gu Huaijiang. "We previously asked you if you felt the eldest prince or the second prince was more suited to being the crown prince, and you always refused to provide us with an answer. In truth, we have also been feeling quite conflicted about it and have not been able to make a decision. The eldest prince is composed and intelligent. Ever since he was young, given that he is the eldest son, we have kept him at our side to train him. His performance has never let me down. The second prince is smart, bold, and can occasionally be a little domineering, but he has never made any major missteps." Gu Huaijiang said, "Indeed, the two princes are exactly like your Majesty. No matter who is chosen as crown prince, they will definitely be able to govern Eastern Ling properly." Emperor Ning smiled and pointed at him. "Don't just say things to make us happy. We know that we are as average a ruler as is possible to be. Eastern Ling is wealthier than Western Kuan, has more fertile lands, and has a larger population. If we were a daring ruler, how could Western Kuan dare to try and invade our territory year after year?" Gu Huaijiang did not respond to this. To say anything further would just be empty flattery. He did not want to say it, and Emperor Ning did not want to hear it. After a long pause, Emperor Ning continued, "Even to this moment, we are conflicted, but this conflict between the two princes over the Prime Minister's position has finally allowed us to come to a clear conclusion. Regardless of who is more suitable to become the Crown Prince, we need to quickly recognize someone to keep the brothers from causing actual harm to each other over the position. That's why we hinted to Imperial Consort Xian that we never had any intention of naming the eldest prince as the Crown Prince." Gu Huaijiang felt his heart drop. He felt that this move was not good. It was no wonder Emperor Ning said that he wanted to console Imperial Consort Xian. If word of this reached the eldest prince, not only could this fail to have him give up on the position of crown prince, but it might make him feel resentful. Your Majesty's thinking is logical. Regardless of who is chosen, it would be best to make the decision quickly and allow the other one to quickly give up on the idea. This is the best choice. Emperor Ning nodded with a bit of joy. It's fortunate that there was this matter with Yin Yen, or we really would not have been able to figure this point out. Imperial Consort Xian has always been gentle and virtuous, and the eldest prince has been understanding. After we announce the second prince as the crown prince and provide their mothers with some comfort, things will likely be fine. Gu Huaijiang remained silent and did not respond. Emperor Ning turned his head and saw that he was looking at the flower buds on the tree. The buds had not yet bloomed, and the little bit of pink that appeared looked quite interesting when compared to a fully bloomed flower. Emperor Ning walked back with a smile. Do you also like wintersweet flowers? This is a new type that was brought in from the north. They were only just planted before the end of the year. We thought that your Marquis Gu's manner, as people with military backgrounds, would not like looking at things like flowers. That's why I never sent any to you. When he brought this up, he suddenly remembered something. We forgot. This year, your manor has Yufu. That little girl probably likes these sorts of flowers. We will have someone send some to your manor, but to see flowers bloom, that will probably need to wait until next year. Gu Huaijiang cupped his hands in a salute. Then I will thank your Majesty. It would also be fine to wait a year. After all, Yufu will surely still be there a year from now. Emperor Ning teased him. That's right. The daughter will become the daughter-in-law. If you had such a plan, why didn't you tell me beforehand? It wasted our effort to try and match Shu Bai with Danyang. Who knew that you already had your eyes set on a daughter-in-law? Hearing this tone, it seemed that he did not have any complaints about Gu Shubai and Yufu. Gu Huaijiang was a little embarrassed. I ask your Majesty for forgiveness. This subject, there's no need to explain. We dote on our daughter, and you also dote on your daughter. Wanting to find her the best partner who is talented and handsome, we obviously understand. But we need to think a bit. Who would be a good choice for Danyang to marry? While Emperor Ning spoke, he continued to walk further into the wintersweet garden. Gu Huaijiang stood behind him with his brow slightly furrowed. If the matter of naming a crown prince really was as simple as Emperor Ning had made it sound, that would be great. Unfortunately, whether it was Imperial Consort Xian or the eldest prince, neither were as understanding as he thought. Little Yufu, I heard some good news. Gu Yi enthusiastically ran over to the western wing. Before even stepping inside, he began to shout. Yufu had already become accustomed to him acting this way and walked over from the corridor to say, What good news? Western Kuan's special envoy will be returning to their country. Your junior disciple will also be leaving with them. Does this not count as good news? Yufu was stunned. Kuan Wushang is leaving. She had wanted to ask why he would not let her know, but suddenly remembered that Kuan Wushang was completely unable to get close to Marquis Gu's manor. Even Yao Lan refused to help pass along anything that he said. How could he let her know? Gu Yi seemed to be able to tell what she was thinking. I heard one of the soldiers in the manor say that he came on the night of the Lantern Festival but was chased away before he could get close. Yufu said, Wasn't that around the time that Prime Minister Yin resigned? It seems that he was planning to leave Eastern Ling at that time. No, there's something that I need to find him and ask him about. She quickly ran out of the western wing, while Gui shouted from behind, Western Kuan's special envoy should have already left the city. How are you going to find him? Acting so hurriedly, what's making you so anxious? Yufu ran out and bumped into Gu Shubai along the way. Fortunately, He caught her shoulder and kept her from falling down. What a nicely timed appearance. Yu Fu grabbed his sleeve. Eldest brother, take me on a trip out of the manor. I will slowly tell you along the way. Outside the city gates, the eldest prince had been tasked with sending off Western Kuen's special envoy. The special envoy's group gradually moved further and further away, and the eldest prince ordered for things to get tidied up. Just as he was about to return to the palace to report, he suddenly saw a fast horse riding out from the city. When the horse passed by the eldest prince, it suddenly stopped. Only then did he see that it was Gu Shubai and Yu Fu on the horse. Eldest prince, has Western Kuen's special envoy left? They just left. What happened? Gu Shubai lifted the reins. Yu Fu wants to send off her junior disciple. When we get the chance, we will tell eldest prince more. Farewell. After he finished speaking, he rode off. The eldest prince watched them ride off for a while before climbing into his carriage and returning into the city. Just after the special envoy left Linen, Kuen Wushang ordered the group to slow down. It seemed as though he was waiting for someone. Qigong had already become accustomed to his seemingly mindless actions and waved his hand. Seventh prince has the most authority. Just listen to his orders. There's no need to ask me. Asking him would also be pointless. Could he possibly be more stubborn than Kuen Wushang? At worst, they would be unable to reach the next post station before nightfall, so it would be fine if they dawdled a little. Suddenly, they saw a cloud of dust draw closer from the direction of Linen. One of the guards outside said, "Seventh Prince, it seems that there is a horse riding after us. Should we have someone go and take a look?" Kuen Wushang suddenly lifted the curtain. It must be Yu Fu. Stop the carriage. Come to a complete stop. He stood on the shaft of the carriage and looked into the distance. The cloud of dust made it hard to see who was riding the horse, but he was certain that it was Yu Fu. That horse was drawing closer at a high speed, and Kuen Wushang saw the girl sitting in front of Gu Shubai. Wearing a peach-colored coat that covered her face, he could immediately tell that it was Yu Fu. Aside from her, what other girl would be able to ride Gu Shubai's horse? Little senior disciple, I'm here. He, who was prideful and domineering toward the special envoy, now spoke to Yu Fu very sweetly. The words little senior disciple were said so smoothly that Qigong could hear them from inside the carriage and let out a faint snort. Gu Shubai dismounted his horse and helped Yu Fu down. Yu Fu said, "Are you returning to Western Kuen or Immortals Valley?" "I will be returning to my country to report to Father Emperor first before quickly returning to Immortals Valley." "Do you have anything you want me to pass along to Master?" Yu Fu shook her head and handed him a small porcelain bottle. "Master and I have been exchanging letters. There's no need for you to pass along any messages. This bottle has a new medicine that I made. Every time that a disciple leaves the valley, they must develop a new medicine, otherwise, Master will definitely believe that they got lazy and punish them. I figure that you haven't had much time to develop any new medicines while in Eastern Ling, right?" Kuen Wushang smiled foolishly. "Little senior disciple really treats me the best. What sort of medicine is this?" He opened the bottle and sniffed it. The smell was extremely strange, and he was unable to tell what it contained. It was made using herbs from Eastern Ling. It's natural that you can't tell what it is. It contains rose mallow, and it invigorates the mind and spirit. It is exceptional. What? Invigorates the mind and spirit. Kuen Wushang immediately let out a strange cry. "I am studying poisons in Immortals Valley. If I give Master a medicine that invigorates the mind and spirit, are you sure that he won't beat me to death?" Yu Fu rolled her eyes at him. "Do as you like." She turned her head to look at Gu Shubai, then dragged Kuen Wushang off to the side to speak. "Was it really Yin Shuo who asked you for the poison?" "It was." "What poison did he want?" Something hypertoxic that even you can't treat. Ha! Yu Fu gently laughed. A poison that she could not treat, how could one be so easy to find? Then why did you give him one that wasn't? I don't dare kill Gu Shubai. Yu Fu looked at him seriously. For the first time, she felt that the carefree Kun Wushang had done something proper. It's good as long as you know. Even if you managed to steal military secrets from Marquis Gu's manor, Emperor Ning would not care, and the head general would care even less. But if eldest brother died at your hands, they would not let you return to Western Kun alive. Kun Wushang smiled but did not speak. He was not afraid of Emperor Ning or Gu Huaijiang. He was just worried that Yu Fu would be sad if Gu Shubai died. The two chatted for a while then walked back. Gu Shubai cupped his hands toward Kun Wushang. Regardless of your motive, Gu Shubai will accept 7th Prince's kindness. Kun Wushang did not respond with a kind look. Even if it was kindness, it was for my little senior disciple. It has nothing to do with you. He climbed into the carriage and suddenly turned around. But if you really want to repay this kindness, I would not mind. You just need to promise me that you will take care of her like a true older brother. He heavily emphasized the 3 words true older brother. Gu Shubai smiled and picked Yu Fu up around her waist to get back up on the horse. Provocatively looking at Kun Wushang, he said, "Don't worry." Kun Wushang's eyes were on the verge of shooting out flames. How could he feel at ease with this? Snow was falling heavily, and there was a carriage covered in a light blue tarp parked outside the Prime Minister's manor. Yin Yen removed his gold and purple hat, leaving just a hairpin. His purplish-red government uniform had also been swapped out for a plain cotton robe. People relied on clothes the same way that horses relied on saddles. Now that Yin Yen was dressed so plainly, he looked no different from the other old men in the city. Who could possibly imagine that such a Yin Yen had previously been the prestigious prime minister? Yin Shua and Yin Jiyao sent him off. The steady son was able to contain himself, but the daughter was already hoarse from crying. "Father, can you really not wait until spring arrives before leaving? It's so cold outside, and the ground is still frozen. How can eldest brother and I feel at ease with knowing that you have returned to the old home in the Min province alone?" Yin Shua also said, "Although it is the old home, our Yin family has been serving as court officials for many generations. The old home would have been abandoned for a long time. If father leaves in such a rush, I fear that the old home would not have the time to tidy up properly." Yin Yen waved his hand, telling them that there was no need to continue. "I must leave quickly. His Majesty favors Marquis Gu's manor a great deal, and Gu Shubai nearly died. I only resigned to apologize for my crime, but there are quite a few senior officials in court who have resentments toward me and are very dissatisfied. If I don't quickly leave and anger His Majesty, it would not be good for the 2 of you." He raised his head and looked around. A cold snowflake snuck under his collar and landed on his neck, causing him to shiver. However, he slowly began to laugh. His Majesty's anger will only be reduced by hearing that it was such a cold day and that it was snowing so heavily. Do you 2 understand? The siblings silently nodded. Yin Yen had always been strict. Who knew that he was thinking about the 2 of them at such a critical moment? Yin Shua said, "Father, don't worry. When I establish myself in court and things calm down, I will definitely arrange for father to be brought back from the Min province." Yin Yen looked at him warmly. This son of his had always made him proud, and there was nothing that would make him feel uneasy. The one that made him feel uneasy was Yin Jiyao. "For your mother's grave, father has already ordered for someone to erect a nameless monument. In the future, there won't be any need to worry about being unable to find it after a heavy snowfall. But her identity must remain hidden from all outsiders. You must not let it slip. Do you understand?" Her mother's grave would be unnamed, and there was no spirit tablet at home. Not even her name could be discovered by outsiders. Having a nameless grave was also good, for it was better than nothing. Hot tears welled up in Yin Jiao's eyes. Many thanks, father. Daughter understands. Daughter definitely will not let anyone else know. Yin Yan nodded his head, then turned to Yin Shuo. You need to take good care of Jiao. When father is not at the manor, you two will need to rely on each other. Father will only be able to feel at ease if you two siblings are united. Yin Shuo bowed and replied, Father, do not worry. Son will definitely take good care of Jiao and calm the situation in court. I definitely will not allow father's departure be in vain. The heavy snow continued to fall, and the carriage slowly departed, leaving a thin trail in the snow. In Yin Yan's life, this was the first time that he had been in such a small carriage. He shrank down inside the carriage and slowly closed his eyes. He was squeezed into the carriage with his clothes and rations. Behind the carriage, Yin Shuo and Yin Jiao were kneeling to send him off, only standing up after a long time. Your Majesty has made a decree. The son of former Prime Minister Yin Yan, Yin Shuo, is to succeed the position of Prime Minister. You will assist us and lead the court. All officials must work together to fulfill their duties, and negligence will not be tolerated. That's all. The spot of Prime Minister was granted, and the officials were all shocked. They initially thought that they would be able to see what His Majesty thought of the eldest prince and the second prince through this decree. Who knew that His Majesty would not choose anyone that had been recommended? Instead, he chose to grant the position to Yin Shuo directly. He was only 21 years of age, which made him the youngest prime minister in Eastern Ling's history. It was truly shocking. But thinking about it carefully, he had already received training from His Majesty in court affairs, and Yin Yan was his father. When it came to a prime minister's work, Yin Shuo could not be more familiar. Moreover, this person was thorough in his work, and he was popular in court. He was not as harsh or demanding as Yin Yan, thus he was suited to the position of prime minister. After court was dismissed, the eldest prince and the second prince had ugly looks on their faces. It was fortunate that His Majesty did not choose one of the people that they had recommended or one that the other had recommended. One of the officials moved to the eldest prince's side and quietly consoled him, Eldest prince, don't worry. His Majesty had planned to have eldest young Sir Yin succeed Prime Minister Yin's position. It's not that he did not want to hear your recommendation. The eldest prince faintly smiled but declined to respond. The official did not understand. The eldest prince also could not say anything. Imperial consort Xian had called him to Qinghua Palace the day before and told him what His Majesty had told her. Mother and son sat face to face in silence. It was as though there was heavy snow falling in their hearts. It was ice-cold and blindingly white. Ning Yizhao, it turned out that his name made it clear from the start that he never had a chance. Even if he put in years of hard work and effort, he had no chance of changing His Majesty's mind. At this time, could it be that he would need to tell the officials who had supported him that His Majesty had already made up his mind and would be naming the second prince as crown prince? Even if he did not say it, the officials would find out sooner or later. Unless... The eldest prince raised his head and looked over to the other side, and the second prince also looked at him, giving him an unhappy look and leaving with a flick of his sleeves. That expression, could it be that he still did not know His Majesty's plan? That was also true. His Majesty had not yet announced it to the court. He had only revealed it to Imperial consort Xian. Recently, the court had been busy with the task of filling the Prime Minister's position. It was natural that they needed to wait until the situation calmed down to bring up this matter. He suddenly smiled. Or perhaps, this would be his final chance. After Yin Shuo took over the position of Prime Minister, his first order of business was to visit Marquis Gu's manor and apologize. My aging father is old and muddled, which led him to do something like make an attempt on the life of the eldest young sir. He personally confessed this, and His Majesty has handled it. Although my father has already resigned and returned to the Min province, the guilt is not so easily cleared. The son is responsible for their father's crimes. This is perfectly aligned with the heavenly principles. It's a given that I, as the son of the guilty, should come and apologize. He confessed to Yin Yan's guilt without concealing anything and came to kneel outside Marquis Gu's manor to apologize without showing any concern for his status as Eastern Ling's prime minister. Emperor Ning and the officials in court were quite moved, and any trace of suspicion toward Yin Shuo that carried over from Yin Yan's case had instantly vanished. It was not just them, as even Gu Huaijiang was extremely shocked by Yin Shuo's words. This person is by no means average, knowing when to stand tall and when to bow down. With Yin Yan having been forced to resign from his position, I fear that he will focus even more on establishing himself. It really is hard to imagine. Gu Shubai furrowed his brow. He thought about how Yin Shuo was kneeling outside to apologize, which meant that he would need to go outside, feign ignorance, and help him up with a smile. He remembered what was important and said, "The previous prime minister is the previous prime minister, and you are you. The guilt is not shared. I hope that general and prime minister will be able to reconcile in the future for the sake of the prosperity of Eastern Ling and its people. The guilt is not shared." His, Yin Shuo's, guilt was improperly attributed to Yin Yan. However, Gu Huaijiang told him that Eastern Ling's general and prime minister working in harmony was of the utmost importance. Before there was conclusive evidence, they could not voice their suspicions of Yin Shuo. He reached out and helped him up from the ground, and the two shook hands briefly before kindly letting go. Outsiders talked about how responsible Yin Shuo was. This was clearly a crime committed by his father, yet he did not try to hide from it and actually took the initiative to bring it up. They also spoke of how magnanimous Marquis Gu's manner was. The heir was nearly assassinated, yet they did not hold any grudges and worked with the Prime Minister's manor to improve their relationship. The Prime Minister and General were now united, and Eastern Ling would become even more prosperous. Nobody knew just how estranged they were when they shook hands. After that, the way that they looked at each other, it was as if they were separated by a vast river. Yin Shuo cupped his hands and bid farewell, a cold light flickering in his eyes when he turned around. Gu Shubai already knew. Gu Shubai watched him climb into his carriage and leave, and his smile slowly began to fade. Turning around, he walked back toward the manor. Yin Shuo knew that he already knew. With a new prime minister appointed, the turbulent atmosphere in court that everyone had expected was almost non-existent. Yin Shuo was a kind and amiable person but acted swiftly and resolutely in handling court affairs. He was able to establish himself in this position very quickly, which earned him repeated praise from Emperor Ning. Even all of the bad practices that had been around while Yin Yan was in this position were being uncovered and taken care of. The general and prime minister were getting along, and all of the officials, civil and military, were satisfied. The atmosphere in court was at an all-time high. Qingji, we did not choose the person that you recommended to become prime minister. Do you have any complaints for us? After the arrival of spring, the weather started to get warmer. The second prince had been called into the palace and accompanied Emperor Ning on a stroll. This year's winter had multiple heavy snowfalls, and Emperor Ning felt a sudden cold. The imperial physicians advised him to go out and take a walk while it was clear out. It would be good for his health. The second prince respectfully followed behind him. What sort of thing is Father Emperor saying? Son would not dare to have any complaints about Father Emperor's decisions. Emperor Ning remained silent, and the second prince thought to himself that this was not good. He must have heard some rumors to ask him such a thing. He hurriedly took a couple of steps forward. When Sun heard that Father Emperor wanted Yin Shuo to succeed the position of Prime Minister, there was indeed some unhappiness, but Sun was not complaining about Father Emperor. Instead, I felt that the previous Prime Minister's guilt was too much. No matter how much Father Emperor favors his son, wouldn't Uncle Gu feel quite hurt? In the end, our Easternling should rely more on Marquis Gu's manner. Emperor Ning slowed his pace before stopping and looking at him. Only after a while did he reveal a smile. On this, there's no need for you to worry. For something as important as the Prime Minister's position, it's natural that I asked for your Uncle Gu's thoughts. For you to have such apprehensions is a show of filial piety. Why not tell us directly? If you don't say anything, others will try and sow discord between us, and it made us think that you resented us. The second prince felt a chill in his heart. Who was it that tried to sow discord between us? As a prince, there are plenty of people with their eyes on you. You can't blame others for trying to sow discord. If you wish to blame someone, blame yourself for showing any resentment. Emperor Ning did not say it openly, but the second prince could guess who it was without even thinking. Aside from the eldest prince in his faction, who else would try and sow discord between him and Emperor Ning? He hastily cupped his hands and said, "Yes, Sun will learn from Father Emperor's teaching." Sun did not come directly to Father Emperor because Sun was also uncertain, fearing that Father Emperor would laugh at my foolishness. It has been many years since Mother Empress passed away, and Sun's manor is away from the palace, thus there is not much reason to come into the palace. I am also unlike my brother, the eldest prince, who has his imperial consort mother in the palace to visit from time to time. Emperor Ning furrowed his brow. Nonsense. Your mother empress is no longer here, but your father emperor is still here. What, would others dare to say anything if you came to visit your father emperor from time to time? The second prince lowered his head and fell silent. Emperor Ning changed his tone. Forget it. What you said is not wrong. An adult prince who frequently visits the palace and stays with us will inevitably invite wild speculation from outsiders. But you must know that it's because Yoren Danyang's mother empress is no longer around that we dote on you two a little more. That we did not promote a second empress after all of these years, you should understand the reason. He dotingly patted the second prince's hand, and the second prince raised his head, looking at him in shock. Where is the princess? The second prince strode into the western palace. He was surrounded in such a joyous aura that even the palace maids could tell. Immediately after setting foot inside the palace, he began looking for Princess Danyang. It looked like he had some good news to tell her. One of her personal maids, Tiana, said, replying to second prince, "Princess is in the inner room. Please have some tea, while this servant goes to report. Go quickly. Tell Danyang that I have some good news to share." The second prince clenched his fist with emotion. He placed his hands on the table and left some damp spots on the light yellow covering. It was only then that he realized that he was so nervous that his palms were sweaty. Tiana brought out a cup of tea and noticed the wet patches left by his palms. Her mouth opened slightly in shock, as she quietly retreated from the room. What sort of joyous event had just occurred? She had served at Princess Danyang's side for many years, thus she had a decent understanding of the second prince, yet she had never seen him so flustered before. "Second brother, what sort of good news could make you so excited?" With the sound of the bead curtains, Princess Danyang lazily walked out. Her hair was down, and she looked as if she had just woken up. Father Emperor handed the position of Prime Minister to Yin Shuo, and second brother does not have much of a relationship with him. This isn't anything good. Could it be that second brother has some method to get along with this new Prime Minister? The second prince mockingly laughed. Who cares who holds the position of Prime Minister? Even if Yin Shuo was part of Yi Zhao's faction, this prince does not care. Princess Danyang looked at him seriously and suddenly had a strange feeling. She pushed the second prince's hand and found that his palms were wet with sweat. What exactly is this good news? Second brother, quickly tell me. The second prince looked around, and Tian'er understandingly waved her hand, leading the palace maids and eunuchs out of the room. The doors were closed, and Princess Danyang looked at him expectantly. He smiled and said, "The wish that you and I have had for many years has finally been realized. None of our efforts were wasted. It was only today that I realized that there's no point in competing with Yi Zhao for the support of the court's officials. The most important person is still Father Emperor." Princess Danyang was both shocked and joyous. Father Emperor wants to appoint you as the crown prince? He still has not for the time being, but it should be soon. The second prince cheerfully picked up his cup of tea and gently blew away some of the bubbles at the surface of the tea. Father Emperor called me into the palace today and asked me to accompany him on a walk around the palace. As we walked, we arrived at Mother Empress' former palace. Take a guess, what do you think Father Emperor said to me? What did he say? He said that we did not promote a second empress after all of these years. You should understand the reason. Princess Danyang furrowed her brow, not knowing what these words meant. The second prince said, "Danyang, do you still not understand? Imperial consort Xian has been managing the inner palace on Mother Empress' behalf all of these years, pretending to be virtuous and benevolent. If Father Emperor wanted to appoint Ning Yi Zhao as the crown prince, he would have appointed her as the empress. That would be the proper way of doing things. But Father Emperor never did it, and Imperial consort Xian remains an imperial consort. She could not become the empress and will never end up the empress dowager." Princess Danyang seemed to have reached a revelation and joyously grabbed his hand. "Since Father Emperor revealed his intentions to you, has he told you when he plans to prepare the crown prince's palace?" The second prince smiled. "There's no rush. The court just had a new prime minister appointed, and the situation in court is unstable. It will be a bit longer before Father Emperor can begin preparing the crown prince's palace. When the situation starts to calm down, how much longer would it take to prepare the crown prince's palace?" Princess Danyang hugged his arm and cheerfully said, "I knew it. Second brother is the son that Mother Empress gave birth to, thus the crown prince's position would definitely belong to you." Just looking at the names, it was immediately clear. Father Emperor chose the name Qingji for you. With the blessing of the heavens, provide peace and prosperity for the country. If it wasn't you, who else could it be? The second prince patted her head. He showed some rare kindness to his younger sister from the same mother. Mother Empress is no longer around. We siblings have relied on each other for survival for many years. Now, we've finally made it, but we can't tell anyone about this for now to keep Ning Yi Zhao's faction from finding out and causing trouble. I understand. Second brother, I will be going out of the palace. Tian'er, quickly prepare this princess clothes. Princess Danyang immediately wanted to run into the inner room but was grabbed by the second prince. What are you going out at a time like this for? I am going to look for brother Shu Bai. The second prince furrowed his brow. I only just said that you can't tell anyone. Have you put any consideration into my words? All you think about all day is brother Shu Bai this, brother Shu Bai that. Have you already forgotten that your brother Shu Bai was almost engaged to another girl? Thinking a little, he chose not to say the most hurtful last part. Princess Danyang's eyes were filled with joy. Second brother, when did you become so overly cautious? Could it be that you've forgotten that Father Emperor would definitely have sought out Marquis Gu prior to making as big a decision as appointing a crown prince? Brother Shu Bai probably already knows about it. After saying this, she rushed into the inner room. The second prince just listened to her tell the palace maids to look for clothes and a hairpin. What she said was indeed true. Emperor Ning even asked Gu Huaijiang when it came to something like appointing a new prime minister, much less something like appointing a crown prince. Marquis Gu's manor had always maintained a neutral stance, neither supporting him nor the eldest prince. There was nothing for him to feel uneasy about. He flicked his sleeve and left the Western Palace. Behind a tall column nearby, someone dressed like a palace maid clearly heard the second prince's conversation. She looked around and saw that there were no others nearby. Turning around and leaving the Western Palace, she walked toward the inner palace. The situation in court was trending towards being stable, and Marquis Gu's manor was also able to relax a great deal. Gu Huaijiang had less work, and Gu Shubai had much more free time, thus he would go and visit Yu Fu every day in the Western Wing. Today, just after setting foot in the Western Wing, he felt that the atmosphere was a little off. It felt a little too quiet. He walked through the middle of the courtyard. The maidservant who came to greet him looked a little familiar and bowed very happily upon seeing him. "Eldest young sir, you've come." Gu Shubai hesitated for a moment. "Yao Hong." Qi Ting's expression became a little ugly, replying to "Eldest young sir, Auntie Li has already decided to return my original name. This servant is Qi Ting." This was true. She was now a maidservant who handled physical labor, while Yao Lan was Yu Fu's personal maidservant. It would not be fitting for the two to share a name. Gu Shubai nodded his head and headed straight toward the room. Originally, Qi Ting had been quite happy to have been able to regain her original name. At the very least, when they heard her name, they would think of giving Qian and Qizhou a bit of face, thus they would not treat her too poorly. But based on Gu Shubai's earlier expression, it seemed that he was saying that she was not worthy of sharing Yao Lan's name. This made her feel humiliated. It was all Yu Fu's fault. If not for her, how could these young sirs who had previously treated her so politely now ignore her? She resentfully snorted and absent-mindedly walked forward. Suddenly, she tripped into a puddle on the ground. With this splash, the maidservants working nearby looked over and began to laugh. Granny Lu walked over with her hands on her hips. "I say, Qi Ting, how can you be so stupid? This puddle has been there for so many days, and everyone else has been able to avoid it. You're the only one to fall into it." She loathingly waved her finger in front of her nose. "Why haven't you quickly gone to get changed to return to work? Are you wanting to slack off?" Qi Ting's face turned red from the humiliation. Bowing, she retreated and heard Granny Lu sarcastically lament, "Every time that the young sirs come, she just tries to be seductive. She doesn't even look at herself. How could the young sirs be willing to look at her? Why is it so quiet today? What are you looking at?" Yu Fu sat in the rear corridor while holding Peng Jiu in her lap and a letter in her hand. The room was quiet, and Gu Shubai entered without making a sound, which gave her a fright. "Eldest brother, why did you sneak in so quietly? My martial ability is not as good as everyone else's, so I couldn't hear your footsteps." Gu Shubai looked around. Strange, where are all of this room's maidservants? Just as he said this, someone responded from the inner room, "Eldest young sir, please wait a moment. I will bring the tea out shortly." It was Yao Lan's voice. Yu Fu patted the spot next to her, gesturing for him to sit down. "Head General said that he wanted to have some new accessories made and told me to pick what I like. He would then pass along the designs to the craftsman. I was thinking about what sorts of hairstyles I have and matching the accessories to them. All of these things are taken care of by Lian Zhu, so I just left it to her to take a look." The two younger ones, Yin Ling and Yin Shui, said that they wanted to go too, and I have no clue where Lian Bai went, which leaves Yao Lan on her own. Yao Lan came out with a cup of tea. Young Miss was reading a letter in the rear corridor, and I noticed that young Miss had not touched her medicine kit in a while. I went to tidy it up and did not notice eldest young sir come in. Gu Shubai received the tea. Who is the letter from? Yu Fu handed the letter to him. Here. Kun Wushang left a letter to me at the post house. Before he left, he could not find me, and he did not think that we would leave the city to chase after him. This letter was sent, and Yao Lan forgot about it, only remembering to give it to me today. Yao Lan stuck out her tongue and said somewhat guiltily, the medicine kit still hasn't been fully tidied. If young miss and eldest young sir need anything, just call me. After saying this, she immediately ducked into the inner room. Gu Shubai looked at the letter. It was nothing more than a standard parting letter. At most, it reminded Yu Fu to be careful of Gu Shubai. Gu Shubai is already 21 years old, and you are only 13 years old. When you get a little older, he will no longer be the most attractive man in linen. Little senior disciple, do not be so hasty. Wait until you become of age before deciding anything. You must not be deceived by that old man. The corner of Gu Shubai's mouth twitched. This was the first time that he had been described as an old man. Kun Wushang seemed to be a year younger. This really was the pot calling the kettle black. Yu Fu could tell what part he was reading based on his expression. Covering her mouth, she laughed off to the side. Men understand men the best. A little girl like you would not understand. You absolutely must take care of yourself and don't let him do anything sneaky. The more someone acts dignified, the more beastly they actually are. Based on this, someone, like him, who looked like a beast was actually a good person. Gu Shubai had grounds to support his views and was about to tell Yu Fu that there was no need to read such nonsense, but he was suddenly drawn to the last part of the letter. In truth, when In Shua came to me for the poison, I had wanted to kill Gu Shubai. The reason that I did not hand over the hypertoxic poison is that I was worried that you would be sad. But there's no need to thank me. As a prince of Western Kun, it's possible that I am destined to do some things that will make you sad. Destined to do some things that would make Yu Fu sad. He carefully thought over these words, not understanding what they fully meant. He then looked at Yu Fu, and the latter shook her head. I was deep in thought earlier precisely because of these words. The thing that Kun Wushang would do, what exactly would it be? Before Gu Shubai could think about it carefully, he suddenly heard someone report, Eldest young sir, Princess Danyang has come and is currently waiting for you in the main hall. Princess Danyang was sipping tea while seated in the main hall. Wearing lavish clothes, her flowing red dress fell to the sides of the chair. Her embroidered shoes were hidden below said dress, and she sat there with a reserved and noble air. She was Eastern Ling's princess and the only one born from the empress. But it was only after hearing the news from the second prince that she realized what sort of pride and what sort of nobility she should have as the princess born of the empress. Taking a sip of tea, she slowly loosened the grip of her smooth and pale fingers and gracefully rested her hands on her knees. Qi Zhou was stationed outside the room and quickly glanced at her. This was not the first time that Princess Danyang had come to the Marquis Manor, but for some reason, he felt that today's Princess Danyang was a little different. Hearing the sound of familiar footsteps, Princess Danyang was about to stand up to welcome them but suddenly remembered something and just smoothed out her clothes to make herself look prettier. Gu Shubai walked toward her and cupped his hands, Princess. Only now did she stand up and curtsied, Brother Shubai. Gu Shubai looked around and saw that the second prince was not present. Princess Danyang would always come with the second prince or with the young misses from other noble families. Why was it that she had come on her own today? It did not look like she had come on a whim. Does Princess have something to say? Princess Danyang was thinking about what idle chat she could start with to avoid revealing what she had come to say too abruptly. Who knew that Gu Shubai would immediately see through her plan? She immediately became discouraged. Even if in the eyes of others, she was the noblest princess, in Gu Shubai's eyes, she may as well save herself the effort. In front of him, she was completely unable to hide the truth. Brother Shubai, it's stuffy inside. The weather is quite nice outside, and I recall that the Marquis Manor has a newly constructed greenhouse. The flowers inside must already be blooming, right? This greenhouse had just been built before the end of the year. Gu Huijiang had heard that girls liked flowers and remembered that Marquis Gu's manor only had trees and not much in the way of flowers, thus he quickly ordered the construction of this greenhouse. Like this, even during the cold winter days, there could still be some flowers in bloom. Princess Danyang was absolutely elated about this. With this greenhouse, she would have one more excuse to visit Marquis Gu's manor more often in the future. Gu Shubai hesitated for a moment before turning sideways and giving way. It's in the backyard. Princess, this way. The two walked toward the backyard, with Princess Danyang walking in the front and Gu Shubai staying 3 steps behind her. She tried many times to slow her pace, but Gu Shubai would also slow his pace. It seemed that he had no intention of getting close to her. She was becoming quite disheartened, but she completely forgot all about this when she saw the greenhouse. The entire greenhouse was made of wood and was extremely large. Walking in, it was like setting foot in a sea of flowers, as there were many flowers already blooming. The warm and humid air gave it a spring-like feeling. As people walked around inside, they would feel the warmth of spring surrounding them. She could not stop herself from looking up. It turned out that this greenhouse was not just warm at ground level, as there were lamps hanging up above. Those lamps were very large. Who knew what sort of exquisite work was done such that they shone in a way that mimicked the sun? It was a sight to behold. Uncle Gu is someone with a military background and has always lived a simple life with little extravagance. It's truly hard to imagine that he would devote so much manpower and money on cultivating flowers. As Princess Danyang spoke, she reached out a hand to gently touch a bunch of tender yellow peonies, a smile appearing on her face. Since time immemorial, warriors have liked swords, and beauties have liked flowers. Princess Danyang was no different. Gu Shubai said, if this was in the past, father naturally would not do this sort of thing. But ever since the arrival of Yufu, he started doing all of this. His Majesty rewards Marquis Gu's manor year after year, and that silver finally had a place to be spent. Her hand froze in midair. Thinking of how she could only see this sea of flowers thanks to Yufu, she momentarily pulled her hand back. No matter how she looked, that bunch of peonies was no longer beautiful. Uncle Gu really dotes on Yufu. Being doted on as a young miss of Marquis Gu's manor for a lifetime, how nice is that? If Yufu ends up as eldest young sir's wife, she will also become the Marquis wife. Would that not be hard on her? Gu Shubai simply said, Yufu can't possibly remain a young miss of the Marquis manor for a lifetime. She will eventually need to get married. If she was to become the madam of some other family and no longer had the protection of father and us brothers, I fear that it would be even harder on her. Princess Danyang's voice became cold, as she boldly said, but the wife of the heir to Marquis Gu's manor, that is a position unlike any other. Since time immemorial, marriages have always been between families of equal standing. Though Yufu is nice, she does not have the support of her family status. In the future, she will not be able to provide Marquis Gu's manor with any assistance. If anything were to happen to Marquis Gu's manor, she would not have any family to support her. Isn't that right? The corners of Gu Shubai's mouth twitched. How does Yufu not have any support? My Marquis Gu's manor is her support. This support, does Princess feel that it is insufficient? Princess Danyang anxiously said, Brother Shubai, you're only thinking about her. Why don't you think about yourself a little? If the madam of the heir to Marquis Gu's manor was the younger sister of the crown prince, that would truly provide Yufu with protection and peace of mind. Father Emperor has already decided to appoint second brother as the crown prince. Uncle Gu must have already told you about it, right? Princess Danyang bit her lower lip. She had already made herself very clear. Would Gu Shubai still not understand? A tall shrub in the corner of the greenhouse suddenly moved, as a girl with divine beauty came out from behind the shrub. She looked at Princess Danyang and smiled brightly. If the wife of the heir to Marquis Gu's manor is the direct descendant of Immortals Valley and has the ability to control whether people live or die, that would truly provide protection and peace of mind. The person who came out from behind the shrubs was Yu Fu. Coincidentally, both she and Princess Danyang were wearing red dresses. The two stood face to face, and Princess Danyang immediately felt less confident. Her dress was both more glamorous and more extravagant than Yu Fu's, yet she still felt less confident. It was a feeling of wanting to take a step back and hide. Yu Fu's clothes had a simple style. Naturally, the fabric was of exceptional quality, but the clothes did not look very new. They looked like something that she casually wore at home. Her hair had also been tied up very casually. A few stray tufts of hair rested on her shoulder. As a whole, she looked both very relaxed and very divine. By contrast, this made Princess Danyang's careful preparation look small-minded. Her face turned red, and she used a rebuke to cover up her weakness. How can you hide and eavesdrop on other people's conversations? That's too unprincipled. Suddenly, an old servant walked out from behind the greenhouse while holding a potted dwarf pine. Young miss, I've kept you waiting. This old servant went out back for a long time, but this was the only one that looks close. How about you draw its likeness, and this old servant will send someone out tomorrow to look for it. There's no need. Yu Fu received the potted dwarf pine and said with a smile, Uncle Ding, it's clear that you've worked with plants for many decades. You have good eyes. This plant isn't exactly like I described, but it looks much better. I will take this plant instead. It turned out that she had been in the greenhouse for quite some time and was just waiting for someone to give her something. Princess Danyang's expression turned even uglier. Thinking back to the shameless things that she had just said to Gu Shubai and how Yu Fu had heard all of it, she hated that she could not have Yu Fu disappear immediately. Gu Shubai walked over with a smile and looked at the dwarf pine. What made you think of coming here to look for a bonsai? Yu Fu said, after you left, I had nothing to do and got bored. Thinking of how the head general mentioned that his room was lacking a bit of greenery, thus I thought of looking for some flowers or plants that might be fitting. After a bit of thought, I felt that a pine tree would fit head general's tastes, so I came to the greenhouse to look around. Who knew that while waiting for Uncle Ding, you two would enter while chatting? How could I possibly just jump in and speak up? These words sounded a little jealous, but listening carefully, there was nothing to truly grasp onto. Gu Shubai felt his heart itch and wished that he could just ask her about it. Unfortunately, there was an outsider here. Yu Fu saw his expression and knew that based on his martial ability, he already knew that she was standing nearby in the shrubs. He deliberately remained quiet. Was he wanting her to prove something to him, or was he waiting for some sort of reaction? It seemed that there was some logic to Kun Wushang's words. Whenever he became mischievous, he could rope everyone into his plot. It was only now that Steward Ding noticed Gu Shubai and Princess Danyang, hastily cupping his hands in a salute. Eldest young sir, princess, have you two also come looking for flowers? Gu Shubai said, Uncle Ding, there's nothing to worry about here. You can go. We are just looking around. Very well, if eldest young sir has any orders, just call out. This old servant will be behind the greenhouse. Steward Ding said this and retreated, leaving the three behind. The atmosphere instantly became stuffy. Princess Danyang decided to make a bad situation worse. Yu Fu, you know that I like Brother Shubai, but since you are still young, do you know what it means to really like someone? If you truly like someone, you want to do everything possible to help them out. Although Marquis Gu's manner is prominent, there are also many who are envious of it. If you really want to do something for Brother Shubai's benefit, you should have him marry someone who is able to help Marquis Gu's manner. Yu Fu said, "How does Princess know that I can't provide Marquis Gu's manor with any benefits?" "Very well, even if I can't, how can Princess be so certain that you can provide Marquis Gu's manor with benefits?" Princess Danyang was momentarily speechless, as Yu Fu continued, "Not to mention how the Crown Prince's position has not yet been announced, but even if it had, that does not necessarily mean that he will become the future ruler of Eastern Ling. However, my Marquis Gu's manor has always been relied upon and rewarded for its military exploits. When has it ever needed to marry the princess of its country for more influence? Could it be that Princess' words mean that you do not feel that the second prince will be a good ruler and will rely on this marriage rather than rely on subjects who have made great contributions?" Gu Shubai stood off to the side. It was very rare for him to hear Yu Fu speak at such length, so he found this quite entertaining. Especially when she said, "My Marquis Gu's manor," Yu Fu said those words so fluidly that he felt even more comfortable. This made it clear that Yu Fu already saw Marquis Gu's manor as her home. Princess Danyang had been completely rebuffed. She never thought that she would be told off to such a degree. When had she ever said that the second prince would rely on the marriage and not on his subjects? But was the situation in court not always like this? Relying solely on military contributions and ignoring the complicated court situation, how could one retain their influence? Marquis Gu's manor enjoyed its prestige right now, but there was no guarantee that they could maintain it in the future. "I am a princess. Why would I bother arguing over such things with a little girl? Brother Shubai, think things through carefully." After saying this, she did not dare to listen to Gu Shubai's answer and left the greenhouse. Gu Shubai did not even look at her. He was just looking at Yu Fu with something on his mind. He did not know Yu Fu's identity for certain, but the possibility of her being Western Kuan's princess had already been eliminated because Kuan Wushang had openly expressed his feelings for Yu Fu. They definitely were not the feelings an older brother felt for a younger sister. As long as she was not the princess of an enemy country, it was fine. Even if Yu Fu was just a commoner, he was perfectly happy. Princess Danyang had been chased off in a huff, and Yu Fu let out a long sigh. It turned out that she was just a paper tiger, only daring to bare her fangs in front of outsiders. When it was just Gu Shubai present, she revealed her true nature. "Eldest brother, was I really fierce just now?" Princess Danyang looked very angry. No matter what she said, Gu Shubai would fully support her and said, "Not at all. In fact, you were very reasonable. Appointing people through favoritism is not the way of a good ruler, and Marquis Gu's manor looks down on currying favor with the imperial family. Princess Danyang wanted to use this to try and force me to give in, but it seems that she's underestimating our Marquis Gu's manor a little too much while overestimating the second prince a little too much." Yu Fu was right. The second prince had not yet become the crown prince, and even if he was, there was no guarantee that he would become Eastern Ling's emperor. It was also no wonder that Princess Danyang was in such a rush. She was already 16 years of age. Other girls had already gotten married by this age or were at least engaged. As the princess born of the empress, she could not reach her goal but would not settle for any less, which resulted in her having delayed it until this moment. As long as she could get over this point and no longer hope that Gu Shubai would change his mind, she would quickly get married and start having children. Yu Fu thought back to what Princess Danyang had said. In truth, what she said was also reasonable. Marquis Gu's manor conducts itself properly, remaining loyal to the ruler and nobody else. While His Majesty and Head General have a good relationship, it's inevitable that he will occasionally feel a little suspicious. In the future, regardless of which prince takes the throne, there is no guarantee that they will trust Marquis Gu's manor as much as His Majesty currently does. If there is a connection through marriage, it's natural that things would be significantly better. As she reached the end, she raised her head to look at Gu Shubai. Eldest brother, are you not at all moved by that? I am a little. Gu Shubai wanted to tease her a little, but I thought about it and feel that it would be more beneficial if the wife of the heir to Marquis Gu's manor was a direct descendant of Immortals Valley, someone who could control whether people lived or died. Yu Fu's face immediately turned red. Were those not the words that she had just used to scare off Princess Danyang? He even remembered it word for word. She simply decided to hug the dwarf pine tree and walk toward the greenhouse's exit, completely ignoring him. Gu Shubai took the pot that she was carrying. All right, I won't tease you anymore. Do you know why father never wanted to remarry? Of course, Yu Fu knew. It's because head general had profound feelings for his first wife. I heard many people talk about it. Gu Shubai nodded. Father is a loving person, and he has always taught us this. He would never rush us to get married, nor would he say that we have to marry someone from a powerful family. Instead, he said that we should find the girl that we want to spend the rest of our lives with. Gu Huaijiang held a high position but had no wishes or desires. This was the only thing that he held firm on. For this, he did not hesitate to refuse His Majesty's proposals. Yu Fu emotionally said, Head General naturally has the character of a head general. This character was one worthy of being imitated by those of the younger generation. Gu Shubai said, That's why there's no need for you to worry about these insignificant matters. Father likes you the most. In his eyes, you would be his first choice for daughter-in-law. Who would worry about that? Yu Fu's small face turned red, and she ran off to hide this. She had just wanted to ask. She really was not worried about it. Gu Shubai chased after her. Yu Fu, slow down a little and wait for me. Yu Fu turned her head. The potted plant that Gu Shubai was holding was unsteady, and he fell to the ground to protect it. Eldest brother. Are you hurt anywhere? She hastily ran over to help him up, and the corners of Gu Shubai's lips curled up to reveal a smile. I'm fine. I just wanted you to hold my hand. He grabbed Yu Fu's hand and stood up at the same time. Ignoring any protests, he held her hand and walked toward the main hall. Yu Fu tried to get free a couple of times but could not get away, so she just allowed her hand to be held. Either way, everyone in the manor knew that Gu Huaijiang wanted them to get married. Yanzheng and the other military officers were even more direct, calling Yu Fu young madam whenever they saw her. Of course, they did not dare say it in front of Gu Shubai. He was still very protective of Yu Fu's reputation. If he heard, Yanzheng was sure to be caned. Yu Fu, since you've picked a bonsai for father, how about you pick one for me? I'll put it on my desk and look at it every day. How about it? Yu Fu had already thought it through. Sure, eldest brother's desk should have a scented Solomon seal. The plant was hardy, and the name contained part of Yu Fu's name. It was natural that Gu Shubai would like it. She continued, I picked a plant for everyone to add a bit of greenery to everyone's rooms. Their moods will naturally improve, isn't that right? Gu Shubai's brow rose slightly and stopped to ask her. Then what have you decided on for second brother? Second brother's room should have cherry blossoms. Unfortunately, cherry blossoms have not yet bloomed during this season, so I guess daffodils would be better. Daffodils were flowers that bloomed during this season. Gu Shubai nodded and said, Second brother has had many cherry blossoms, so there is indeed no need to place any more. Daffodils are good. Daffodils represent steering clear of immorality. If third brother saw them, he would definitely feel very gratified. Yu Fu did not understand the hidden meaning behind his words. She just heard him mention Gu Hanemo and said, "Third brother's room should have a pomegranate tree. His room is so cold that it's like the snow. Adding a bit of red would make it look a little warmer. Second young sir, young Miss Yu Fu has ordered someone deliver a flower." Gu Jogu was in his room writing a letter and suddenly heard this report from the servant. "Quickly bring it in." It turned out to be some daffodils that were being raised in a blue and white porcelain pot. Some of them were already blooming and some were still just buds. Why did Yu Fu suddenly decide to send him flowers? He asked the servant, "Is it just for me, or did everyone get one?" "Everyone got one. It's just that everyone got something different." Master was given a dwarf pine, the eldest young sir received a scented Solomon seal, and second young sir received daffodils. Gu Jogu was feeling triumphant. Everyone else got trees, while I am the only one to receive flowers. It seems that little Yu Fu really favors her second brother. The servant raised his head. Eldest young sir said that the daffodils represent steering clear of immorality, so sending them to second young sir is perfect. Gu Jogu. Gu Jogu placed the potted daffodils on his desk, liking them no matter how he looked at them. "These flowers sure are white. I recall daffodils having another name. They're called fairy over ripples, right? These flowers sure are fragrant. The room has been filled with their fragrance after such a short span of time. These flowers sure are pretty." Standing to the side, the servant Zhong Xiao was no longer able to endure. "Second young sir, this isn't the first time that you've seen daffodils. Is there a need for this?" Gu Jogu rolled his eyes at him. "What do you know? These are daffodils that Yu Fu sent." Zhong Xiao lowered his head and muttered, "They were clearly raised in the greenhouse. What are you muttering?" It's nothing." Gu Jogu stood up. "I will be going out. Take good care of it. You absolutely must not let them die." "Ha! I'm taking care of them." Zhong Xia had a clueless expression. "Second young sir, I don't know how to take care of flowers. It would be one thing if they were planted in dirt, but I am even more clueless when they're planted in water." Gu Jogu was almost at the door before turning back. "If you don't know how, just go to the greenhouse and ask Steward Ding. Could it be that you want me to teach you?" After saying this, he tapped his folding fan on his hand and left the room. Zhong Xia suddenly remembered something and rushed out to shout, "Second young sir, where are you going?" "The city's outskirts. I will definitely be back before dark." He replied without turning back and just waved to Zhong Xia with his folding fan. Zhong Xia began muttering once more, "It's such a cold day," yet he still went out with a folding fan. The second young sir really is becoming showier and showier. Gu Jogu left the city on horseback on his own. Just outside of Linen, there was a barren mountain. It was tall, and the beautiful snow that fell there would not begin melting until all of the snow in the city had melted. He remembered that there was no snow piled up in Linen City during the Lantern Festival, thus Yin Jiao's mother's grave that had been buried under the snow could only be in such a place. He rode his horse around the mountain and began searching. In recent days, the days had started getting warmer. Ice and snow were starting to melt, and the scenery of the mountain was fully visible. He rode his horse past a great number of graves, and he carefully avoided the shorter graves, fearing that trotting on the graves would be disrespectful to the dead. Fortunately, though the graves were short, there were wooden and stone headstones, which marked their locations. If Yin Jiao's mother's grave could be covered by snow, it would definitely be a grave that was without a headstone. Thinking of this point, his search became much easier. He only needed to look at the graves that were unmarked. Suddenly, a stone headstone that had no name on it caught his eye. To be able to afford a stone headstone, it would be impossible that they would leave the name unwritten. For there to be one without a name, there definitely had to be some reason. He hopped off of his horse and walked over to that grave. The headstone was made of veined limestone. It was something that only a wealthy family could afford, so it was very strange for it to be placed on such a small grave. There were also 3 sticks of incense in front of the grave, and Gu Jiugu pinched the incense and found that it was a very expensive type. Just as he was feeling confused, he suddenly heard the sound of footsteps coming from the foot of the mountain. Leading his horse, he hid in the forest nearby. The ones to come up the mountain were 2 middle-aged men and a young maidservant. Based on the sound of their footsteps, it sounded like they were normal people without any martial arts training. "We have worked for the Prime Minister's manor for a long time. Will the young miss still not believe us? She even sent a young girl such a long distance to check. Look at how difficult this mountain path is, right?" The maidservant said, "This matter is important. It's not that the young miss doesn't believe you. Rather, it's just what she felt was necessary to fulfill her filial duties." The other man said, "Yes, yes, yes, if you personally come to take a look, the young miss will feel at ease." "That's good too." Their voices drew closer and closer, as Gu Jiugu hid behind some trees and saw them walk over to the strange headstone. The maidservant touched the headstone. "This headstone is of exceptional quality. Although it can't be engraved, it should be enough to comfort the young miss. It's just that when Master was in the capital, he disliked it when the young miss came out to pay her respects. Now that the eldest young sir is the head of the family, he is even more adamant about not letting young miss out of the city. Thank you to the 2 of you for coming on tomb sweeping day to offer some incense for the young miss birth mother." As she said this, she pulled out a couple pieces of silver from her sleeve and handed the 2 men 1 piece each. The 2 men had received their reward and hastily replied, "Miss is right. When the previous Prime Minister was still around, he advised us of this. How could we dare be negligent? The identity of the young miss birth mother is a secret and has not been revealed to the outside world, but she is still considered our master. It's natural that we would not dare to be negligent." The maidservant nodded, "Don't worry. I will inform the young miss of your loyalty and have her say a few words to the young master. There won't be any shortage of benefits for you." "Hee, many thanks. Now, the young master is the Prime Minister. With just a word from him, we will definitely be thankful for the benefits provided by the young miss." In the end, she bowed toward the headstone before heading back down the mountain. After the 3 left, Gu Jiugu walked out of the forest and carefully looked over the blank headstone. Sure enough, Yin Jiyao's birth mother was not Madame Yin. Based on what those 3 said, she was born of a concubine. Just how important was her identity that Yin Yan would try so hard to hide it? He spoke to himself and suddenly felt a cold wind blow past. The sky was slowly getting darker. Forget it, he would return to the city first and tell his father before giving this matter more thought. He hopped back on his horse, descended the mountain, and rushed toward the city. "You're saying that Yin Jiyao is not the child of Madame Yin, and you are sure of this?" Gu Huaijiang was in the outer study taking care of some court matters, and Gu Shubai was also present. Hearing Gu Jiugu's words, they felt a little caught off guard. Yin Yan had always been known for having few interests, fully devoting himself to loyally serving the emperor without any desires. Aside from the madam of the Prime Minister's manor, there were no concubines. Later on, Madame Yin passed away, and he never remarried. Unlike when Gu Huaijiang decided not to remarry, Yin Yan's decision was mockingly seen as fake by people in court. They all said that he did it to seem virtuous and to pretend to be a saint. Even a sage needed affection. Distancing himself from others ended up making him appear fake. This was quite strange, as Yin Yan did not want to remarry, so how could he be hiding a concubine? Gu Jiugu said, "Father, on the night of the Lantern Festival, I left the manor to look for eldest brother and the others, and I happened to run into young Miss Yin." A seed of doubt was planted on that night, and I went out today to investigate. Who knew that I would run into people from the Prime Minister's manor? If not for this, Sun would not dare believe it. Gu Shubai said, "You are certain that you heard them say that her identity had to be kept secret?" Gu Jogu nodded, "I am." Could it be that her birth mother was the daughter of an official convicted of a crime or was a prostitute, and that's why the previous Prime Minister always kept it hidden, fearing that it would ruin his reputation? This was possible. But Gu Shubai felt that this matter was not so simple. Gu Huijiang said, "A prostitute is not too likely. Yin Yan and I have known each other for many years, and he never went to any brothels. His manor doesn't even have any dancers or singers." Saying it like that, the possibilities had been drastically reduced. Gu Shubai said, "If she's the daughter of a criminal, the Imperial Court of Justice will have some records. Sun will try and investigate a little. Although this is an internal matter for the Prime Minister's manor, and we should never have inserted ourselves into this matter, I feel that Inshua taking the position of Prime Minister will be bad for our Marquis Gu's manor. If we can get any sort of a handle on the Prime Minister's manor, we definitely won't need to be so passive." Gu Jogu added, "I agree with eldest brother's way of thinking. Father, just leave this matter to eldest brother and me to investigate. As the heir to Marquis Gu's manor, it will be easier for eldest brother to look for the records, while Sun has met young Miss Yin a few times and can be considered a little close. I might be able to glean some information from her." Gu Shubai glanced at him with a smile that carried a faintly teasing look. Speaking of cherry blossoms, here was another. He had not yet figured things out with Yao Yu, yet here came a young Miss Yin. Who knew if this would end up being a beautiful cherry blossom or a rotten one? Gu Jogu noticed this look and coughed a few times in embarrassment. Gu Shubai saw this and retracted the look. Gu Huijiang pondered this for a while. "I am not worried about Shubai. He knows how to investigate the things that he wants while keeping it a secret from Yin Shuo. But Jogu, you need to maintain a sense of propriety when interacting with young Miss Yin. Even if her brother and father did things that try to disadvantage my Marquis Gu's manor, she might not know of it. You absolutely must not harm the innocent." Gu Jogu felt a little awkward from hearing these words. Father should not be suspecting that. He would try to seduce her, right? He hastily cupped his hands. "Father, don't worry. Sun has a sense of propriety and definitely will not do anything to harm young Miss Yin." Gu Huijiang looked at him suspiciously. He had a sense of propriety. He probably felt that he had a sense of propriety, but just how many girls in the capital admired him? All of them contended for his affection, and it was not uncommon to see actual fights break out because of this. If Yin Jiao also became like this, it would become even more problematic. In the end, he, Gu Huijiang, had a reputation for being upright and proper. How could he have such an eye-catching son? It was truly strange. This time, it was Gu Huijiang who coughed. Gu Shubai slightly furrowed his brow. Has father's cough still not gotten better? Imperial physician Sun said that it's just a cold, and it should get better with a bit of medicine. Just how long has it been? Yet it seems the cough is getting worse. Gu Huijiang waved his hand. It can't be helped. When people get old, it's inevitable that they will be slower to recover from illness. I am doing quite well. His Majesty caught a cold this winter and still has not fully recovered. It's probably the case that I caught it from my many visits to the palace. Gu Jogu did not notice it before, but now that Gu Shubai mentioned it, he noticed that Gu Huijiang had been sick for a little too long. He said, "Father, you are also not doing well, so how about you stay home for the next few days? Just say that you are worried about making His Majesty sick. His Majesty will definitely understand." Gu Shubai said, "Father should just stay home and rest. Tomorrow, I will invite Imperial Physician Sun to come and take a look." Leave the matters in court and at home to son and second brother. Father, there's no need to worry. Gu Huaijiang looked at his sons. They had already grown up and were able to help shoulder his burdens. Naturally, there was nothing for him to worry about. All right, I will leave it to the two of you. Father will just start thinking about retiring early. Previously, Yu Fu said that she had seen great results in her training with her flying needles, being able to throw 8 needles at once. Since there's no need for me to go into court tomorrow, I will go and keep her company while she trains. Gu Huaijiang rarely had any time to spare. Now that he had some time, he immediately thought of Yu Fu. It was fortunate that he did not have an actual daughter. Who knows just how jealous he might end up becoming. Gu Shubai and his brother bid farewell and left the study. The sky was dark, and the wind blew through the trees. Gu Jiuguk furrowed his brow and looked up at the sky. It's already spring, yet the wind is getting cold. Gu Shubai followed his gaze and looked over. The treetops were swaying with the wind. In the darkness of night, they swayed like ghosts or spirits. He suddenly had a bad premonition. Want it or not, the world changes, and I can't shake this feeling that a large storm is headed straight for Marquis Gu's manor. In Qinghua Palace, the gates were tightly shut. The eunuch who had come to deliver something from the imperial household department was too scared to make a sound upon seeing that all of the palace maids were waiting outside the hall. The chief palace maid, Mu Jin, walked over from the middle of the hall and gave him a look. The two then backed up a distance to speak. The eldest prince came, so I fear that Her Highness will not have a chance to meet with you. Eunuch, you should go back for now. The eunuch who came for the delivery was Eunuch Huang, the head of the imperial household department. In response, he said, we only came today to deliver the monthly allowance. This is the silver that Qinghua Palace will receive for the month. Miss Mu Jin, please take a look, and we will be on our way. Mu Jin received the bundle of silver and bowed to him. Eunuch Huang then left Qinghua Palace on his own. After he left, Mu Jin felt the weight of the bundle and suddenly noticed that something seemed off. This time, it's not just His Majesty getting suddenly excited. This one's informant from the Western Palace came and reported that the second prince was happily telling Princess Danyang about it. I fear that the imperial decree ordering preparations for the Eastern Palace will come. Dressed in plain but elegant clothes, Imperial Consort Xian leaned sideways on her sofa and put her forehead in her hands. She looked extremely tired. Recently, Emperor Ning's illness has continued to linger, and she had remained at his side to take care of him. She no longer had the energy that the younger concubines did, but for the sake of preventing anyone from taking away his favor, she continued to take care of everything on her own. It was fortunate that she was the one managing the inner palace, so there were no concubines who would dare to try and compete with her. She took care of Emperor Ning on her own and only now found some time to come back and see the eldest prince. The eldest prince said, Imperial Consort Mother, you're still worried about taking care of Father Emperor? Are you not at all worried? During the past few days, he had been trying to discuss this matter with Imperial Consort Xian, yet Imperial Consort Xian had gone to take care of Emperor Ning, which left him waiting for a number of days. Imperial Consort Xian lifted her head. Naturally, this one was worried, but what good does that do? After all of these years, this one has worked hard in managing the inner palace and taking care of His Majesty. However, His Majesty never thought about it. Since this is the case, would I not need to work even harder in taking care of him in hopes of finally being able to make him feel something and show some concern for the two of us? The eldest prince looked at Imperial Consort Xian with a frown. She had grown accustomed to the virtuous act that she had been putting on after all of these years, and she continued with it even after a critical moment like this. Imperial Consort Mother, have you never considered that if Father Emperor never recovers from this illness, he won't be able to appoint Ning Qingji as the crown prince. You are currently working tirelessly to take care of Father Emperor, and that is only helping them. Imperial Consort Xian shuddered and looked at the eldest prince in a daze, but His Majesty's illness is just a cold. Sooner or later, it will get better. When he does get better, he will appoint whomever he was planning to appoint. Even if I didn't take care of him, what good would that do? The eldest prince looked at her profoundly. The understanding between mother and son eventually allowed Imperial Consort Xian to understand what he was thinking. Her hand trembled, as she nearly knocked over a cup of tea on the table. Imperial Consort Xian pointed at him. Imperial son, what do you mean by this? She clearly understood what the eldest prince meant, but the idea was too horrific. She had to hear it directly from the eldest prince to confirm her suspicions. The eldest prince moved closer and lowered his voice. If Father Emperor appoints a crown prince while he is alive, the position of emperor will definitely go to the crown prince after he passes away. If son wishes to contend for the throne, it would be by stealing it. But if Father Emperor never recovers from his illness, the court would not have a crown prince, while Ning Qingji and I both have half of the court's approval, which gives me some room to contend. You really intend to act against your Father Emperor? Although Imperial Consort Xian might be dissatisfied with how Emperor Ning handled things, as a member of the inner palace, she could only think of ways to try and move Emperor Ning through his emotions. As a result, she spent the past few days taking care of feeding him his medicine, not daring to be the slightest bit negligent. But this usually calm and filial eldest prince, whom she viewed as her pride and joy, actually told her to let Emperor Ning fall ill and never recover. Then what would you do? The eldest prince said, hasn't Imperial Consort Mother been at Father Emperor's side and taken care of feeding him his medicine? As long as you add a little something to his medicine, Father Emperor's illness will gradually get worse, and nobody would suspect Imperial Consort Mother. Who said that nobody would? Imperial Consort Xian never thought that he would actually suggest that she should do it. His Majesty has so many people at his side. Even if there aren't any concubines from the inner palace, there are still eunuchs and palace maids. How do you want Imperial Consort Mother to avoid being seen? If I am seen, plotting to harm His Majesty is a crime that will see 9 generations of my family executed. The eldest prince said, Imperial Consort Mother, what else do you think we can do aside from take this step? Once Ning Qingji is appointed to the position of crown prince, it will be hard for both of us to avoid death. Rather than waiting to die, son would rather take the initiative. There might even be a chance of victory. Imperial Consort Xian sat on the sofa, and the eldest prince's words struck her like lightning and echoed in her head like thunder. The head palace maid, Mu Jin, suddenly walked into the hall. What is it? Imperial Consort Xian had not yet recovered from her shock when she saw Mu Jin walk in with a look of displeasure. She saluted Imperial Consort Xian and the eldest prince. Your Highness, please take a look. This is the monthly allowance that Eunuch Huang just delivered, and it's significantly less than the usual amount. This servant weighed it and noticed that it felt off. I sent someone to go and ask, and he actually said that it had always been this much. Imperial Consort Xian furrowed her brow and looked at the bundle in her hand. Indeed, it was not as plentiful as usual. She scolded, the people at the Imperial Household Department really have become muddled, even forgetting how much monthly allowance is to be given to this one's palace. What a bunch of fools. Mu Jin bit her lip and glanced at the eldest prince. It seemed that she had something that was hard to say. Imperial Consort Xian said, if you have something to say, just say it. Mu Jin kneeled on the ground and said, the person who was sent to ask heard Eunuch Huang say to his subordinate eunuch that the second prince is the future crown prince, and there is no need to get too close with Qinghua Palace. Crash. The teacup next to Imperial Consort Xian's hand shattered on the ground. Imperial Physician's son, please come in. Outside the western wing, Qi Zhou led Imperial Physician's son inside. Lord Marquis has been here with the young miss since this morning. Since you frequently visit the manor, why not just perform the examination here in the young miss courtyard? Well put, well put. Imperial Physician's son walked in while chuckling. He could be considered a common guest in the western wing, and he was familiar with the path. In the past, whenever Yu Fu caught a cold or had a nosebleed, Marquis Gu's manor would bring him in to treat her. Later on, Yu Fu's body grew much stronger, so his visits were much less frequent, and he found this to be a pity. If he could meet with Yu Fu more often, he would be able to hear more and more about the situation in Immortals Valley, especially things like the deity of medicine's prescriptions. That would be of great benefit to him. Qi Zhou also knew that Imperial Physician's son liked Yu Fu. He had even brazenly asked Gu Huaijiang something immensely stupid, to allow Yu Fu to be raised in his manor. With nothing else to say, he just led him forward. Lian Bai came out from the room to receive him, bowing in a salute. Imperial Physician's son, Steward Qi, Lord Marquis, and young miss are in the back corridor. Saying this, she led the two of them inside. Imperial Physician's son walked at the front. Upon setting foot in the back corridor, a silver light flashed past. He immediately stopped moving and stood in place, not daring to move. Gu Huaijiang burst out laughing. Yu Fu covered her mouth. Sister Lian Bai, you didn't even give Imperial Physician's son a warning. What if he had gotten hurt? Lian Bai was also quite helpless. Imperial Physician's son was too anxious, and this servant did not get a chance to warn him before he stepped out. Imperial Physician's son settled his nerves and took a look. At the far end of the corridor, there was a target that had been riddled with silver needles. He happily walked up to take a look, wanting to reach out and touch but not daring to do so. These are young Miss Yu Fu's poison needles, right? This lowly official previously heard about them, but this is my first time seeing them. I heard that when young Miss Yu Fu went to save the eldest young sir, you threw them like this and defeated a large group of assassins. Isn't that right? Gu Huaijiang said. How does Imperial Physician's son know about this? Imperial Physician's son chuckled. When this lowly official heard that young Miss Yu Fu saved the eldest young sir, I was extremely worried, having assumed that young Miss Yu Fu would need this lowly official once she returned. That's why I asked around a great deal. I never thought. He rubbed his nose with a bit of a guilty conscience. He could not just say in front of Gu Huaijiang that he was actually extremely disappointed that Yu Fu was not hurt, right? He did not say it, but Gu Huaijiang was able to figure out the words that remained unspoken. Yu Fu said, Head General, since Imperial Physician's son has come, let's take care of the examination first. Though your illness is not serious, it would not be good to drag things out. Everyone then returned from the back corridor to the front, and Imperial Physician's son checked Gu Huaijiang's pulse. His brows suddenly furrowed. Strange, how truly strange. What's strange? Imperial Physician's son lowered his wrist. Has Lord Marquis truly been taking the medicine that this lowly official prescribed? Why is it that the illness has not gotten better but has actually gotten worse? Qi Zhou had been standing outside the door but immediately entered to respond upon hearing this. This servant personally watched the preparations of Lord Marquis medicine. There isn't the slightest deviation from what Imperial Physician prescribed. Lord Marquis also downs the medicine in one gulp every time. Imperial Physician's son, please be at ease. Imperial Physician's son shook his head. Lord Marquis is someone with a military background and has a sturdy physique. A minor cold and a cough should not be a problem. This lowly official originally figured that Lord Marquis would have fully recovered after taking the medicine for 3 days, but it has already been 7 or 8 days. This should not be the case. With him saying it like this, Yu Fu also felt that something was off. Imperial Physician's son moved to the side. Young Miss Yu Fu, how about you come and take a look? Yu Fu looked at Gu Huaijiang and modestly said, the greatest taboo in medicine is seeking too many opinions. Since Imperial Physician's son has always been the one checking head general's pulse, how could I get in the way? Before Gu Huaijiang could say anything, Imperial Physician's son had already responded, it's fine, it's fine. I do not mind. Young Miss Yu Fu has studied in Immortals Valley, and I am all too eager to learn a bit from you. Now that he was being so open about it, she now felt a little embarrassed. Imperial Physician's son was given a fright by her expression, and Gu Huaijiang also became stern. He knew that any time Yu Fu had this expression, it would not be a minor issue. Yu Fu said, Imperial Physician's son, the prescription that you gave to head general, what was it? Imperial Physician's son explained the medicines that he prescribed, and Yu Fu listened. These are the symptoms of some pathogen entering the body and causing problems at the throat. That's right. Could it be that you have a different opinion? Yu Fu took a deep breath. It's poison. Head general was poisoned. Imperial Physician's son was extremely shocked. Even Qi Zhou, Lian Bai, Lian Zhu, and the others standing off to the side were shocked. Lord Marquis was poisoned. Who would dare to try and poison him? Yu Fu said, when it comes to treating illness and saving people, I do not have as much experience as Imperial Physician's son, but when it comes to poisons, I am a little more familiar. This poison is very covert and concealed itself beneath the blood vessels. First, it assaults the throat, but I fear that it will slowly spread to the internal organs. Imperial Physician's son, you should know that a pathogen getting into the body won't result in the throat turning purple. She motioned for Gu Huaijiang to lift at his chin, and Imperial Physician's son came over to take a careful look. Below his Adam's apple, there was a patch of purple. It was so faint that it was almost invisible. Yu Fu was a little shorter than an adult and was the perfect height to see that spot. Imperial Physician's son seemed to come to a sudden realization, and a cold sweat soaked his brow. It's fortunate that it was discovered by young Miss Yu Fu, otherwise, even if this poison managed to spread to the internal organs, this lowly official might not have noticed. If anything happened to Lord Marquis, wouldn't this lowly official have been condemned for the rest of Eastern Ling's history? Gu Huaijiang looked at Yu Fu. What poison is it exactly? Yu Fu fell silent for a while and said with difficulty, that, truthfully, I do not know. Your Majesty, Marquis Gu's manor sent someone to deliver some news. Lord Marquis fell ill and will be staying home to recover and is requesting a day off from Your Majesty. Emperor Ning was partially laying on the bed. The bright yellow canopy of his bed hung to the side and contrasted with his pale white face. Imperial Consort Xian sat next to the bed and held a small white bowl in her hands. She was feeding Emperor Ning his medicine. Hearing Eunuch Gao report this, her hand stopped moving. Emperor Ning sat up straight. What illness is it? Is it serious? Eunuch Gao said, Imperial Physician's son said that some pathogen entered his body, which caused a cough. It isn't anything serious. It's just that Lord Marquis is no longer young and needs to stay home to recover. Emperor Ning let out a sigh. It really is a coincidence for the two of us. Even getting sick, we get sick at the same time. A few days ago, Huaijiang came into the palace to see how we were doing, and he even advised us to go out and get some exercise when we have spare time. He usually spends a good amount of time each day training, yet hasn't he also fallen ill? After saying this, he gave Eunuch Gao an order, go and have some of the 1,000-year ginseng that just arrived at the palace delivered to Marquis Gu's manor. Advise Marquis Gu on our behalf to recover fully before returning to court. There's no need to rush. Recently, Shu Bai has been able to take responsibility for some tasks and will not be negligent. Yes. Eunuch Gao complied and slowly retreated from the bedchamber. Imperial Consort Xian used the small spoon to ladle some medicine from the bowl. Your Majesty, take your medicine first. The efficacy will be reduced if it gets cold. Emperor Ning suddenly remembered something and simply took the bowl and downed it in one gulp. Putting down the bowl, he had a bitter expression, and Imperial Consort Xian hastily brought him a piece of preserved fruit. Emperor Ning placed it in his mouth and felt a little better. We heard people say that medicine isn't as bitter if it's downed in one gulp, but why is it that we still find it extremely bitter? He lazily shifted his posture and crossed his arms in front of his chest. Beloved consort, say, aren't we getting old? Imperial Consort Xian smiled and said, Your Majesty isn't getting old. Rather, Your Majesty is getting younger and younger, even finding the medicine bitter like a little kid. It was clear that Emperor Ning had not been comforted by these words. We are old. Even Huaijiang is getting old. If it's not him getting old, when had he ever requested a day off because of a minor cold? As people get old, even the smallest problems can have major effects. Just like this time with us, never recovering from this minor cold, Imperial Consort Xian subconsciously averted her gaze, then placed the bowl of medicine that he had just drank on a platter that Mu Jin was holding. Mu Jin glanced at Imperial Consort Xian, then bowed and retreated from the bedchamber. The matter of Gu Huaijiang being poisoned was not made public, and Imperial Physician Sun just acted as if things were as he originally believed. In secret, this matter was handed to Yu Fu to handle. Yu Fu, can you treat this poison? Gu Shubai and Gu Jiugu were supposed to be investigating the truth behind Yin Jiyao's birth mother, but who knew that Gu Huaijiang would suddenly be poisoned? How could they still have the mind to investigate? Gu Huaijiang lay face down in bed with his top off. A number of silver needles were stuck in his back. Yu Fu shook her head. All I can do is hold it off for now. I will only be able to begin planning once I have figured out what poison this is. In this world, there are so exceedingly few poisons that I do not know. This was most likely the work of Kun Wushang. Kun Wushang. Gu Jiugu said, these past few days, I have had Steward Qi investigate all of the servants working in the manor, especially those working in the kitchen. All of the food that father has consumed has been investigated, but the source of the poison has not been found. Kun Wushang left Eastern Ling a long time ago. How could he possibly manage to do this? Yu Fu looked at Gu Shubai, eldest brother. Do you remember the last words that he said in his letter? I think that the thing that he mentioned was poisoning the head general. Gu Shubai said, based on poison, there's likely nobody in Eastern Ling who could compare with you. There would only be Kun Wushang and the other disciples from Immortals Valley who would be familiar with your circumstances and which poisons you don't know about. For example, the poison that had been provided to Yin Shuo. Although Yu Fu did not know it, she was able to treat it. But the poison used this time. Yu Fu checked the time, then started pulling out the silver needles from Gu Huaijiang's back. The ones near his neck were dark at the tip. The further down the body she went, the lighter the needles were. The ones nearest his hip were completely normal. Qi Zhou stepped forward and helped Gu Huaijiang put his shirt on. Lord Marquis, how do you feel? Gu Huaijiang concentrated and thought for a bit. My throat feels much better, as it's no longer as dry as before. I no longer feel an uncontrollable urge to cough. The acupuncture that Yu Fu has performed for me these past few days seems to have been effective. Yu Fu said, Head General, lift your head. Gu Huaijiang lifted his head, and everyone looked at his throat. The patch of light purple was still there. Yu Fu had a grave expression. It's just treating the symptoms, not the source cause. If the medicine to treat the poison is not found, the poison will slowly spread and will eventually reach a point where it can no longer be controlled. Second brother, you must think of a way to find the source of the poison. It's not just limited to the food that Head General eats. It could also be something that he touched or smelled. Qi Zhou heard this and hastily said, "The servants working in the manor have all been working here for a long time. The younger servants are also the children of the older servants, so there shouldn't be any problems with them." Gu Shubai said, "Steward Qi, Yu Fu isn't suspecting the manor's servants. It's just that something as serious as father being poisoned is something that must be investigated carefully. This is especially true of those nearest to father, as they have the most opportunities to poison father. I ask Steward Qi to investigate carefully." Qi Zhou obediently complied, but Yu Fu suddenly looked at him. She suddenly remembered someone. "You're saying that Qi Ting poisoned father?" "I am not certain. It's just a suspicion." In a corridor outside the western wing, Yu Fu and Gu Shubai were returning from the main hall. While walking, they discussed Gu Huaijiang's poisoning. Gu Jiugu was responsible for questioning the manor's servants and investigating the things that Gu Huaijiang used in his daily life, but he never found anything. This left everyone feeling very dispirited. Yu Fu said, "If we can't find the slightest bit of evidence, I don't want to suspect anyone lightly. Eldest brother, do you remember when Qi Ting returned after the new year? Even though she had spent over half a year in the countryside, her clothes had completely changed." Gu Shubai said, "What was different?" She thought back to Qi Ting's situation on that day. She wore normal cloth clothes that a countryside girl would wear and wore a simple hairpin. She was also wearing a pair of very small silver earrings. There did not seem to be anything improper, but that pair of earrings was not made by a normal shop. It was a style made by the best jewelry shop in the capital. Gu Shubai carefully thought back. "You mean to say that she deliberately deceiving others to try and have people believe that she has been earnestly spending her days in the countryside on her own? But a maidservant who has been sent to the countryside, when would she have the chance to buy trendy accessories in the capital? Naturally, the granny responsible for her in the countryside would not allow her to go. Although Qian and Qi Zhou were her relatives, they would not buy her any accessories. The only possibility was that Qi Ting had returned to the capital before she had been brought back to the manor. She definitely had some sort of secret." Yu Fu said, "This is just my suspicion. It's possible that she only returned to the capital to play around and was not bribed. That's why I told Yalan to keep an eye on her. I will let you guys know once I know anything definitive. Right now, Head General's poison cannot be treated, nor can we find any clues. The only one I can suspect now is her." Gu Shubai patted her head and consoled her. "I know that you don't want to falsely accuse anyone. It's exactly as Steward Qi said. All of the servants in the manor have served here for many years, and they have no reason to harm father. Only Qi Ting has been away from the manor for an extended period of time. She is most likely to have done it." Yu Fu said with dismay, "I have asked Yalan, and they all said that Qi Ting has not done anything strange in the past few days. At most, she would curse me out behind my back. Eldest brother, do you think that she's really the one who did it? You suspect Kun Wushang and you suspect Qi Ting. There's only one possibility, and that's that she has been bribed by Kun Wushang. This is easy to handle. Leave this to me. You just need to think of how to treat father." Yu Fu vigorously nodded her head. "I have spent all day looking through the medical books that Master gave me in hopes of finding something. If all else fails, we will have to invite him to personally come and visit." Gu Shubai understood that if even Yu Fu could not treat it, it definitely was not ordinary. He could not delay in the slightest. At night, the candle in the western wing's main room was still lit. Yu Fu sat under the candlelight. Her expression had never been so solemn before. Auntie Li had sent all of the maidservants out, leaving only Yao Lan at her side. Even if Lian Zhu and the others were worried, it was pointless. All they could do was go to sleep. The western wing was tranquil. In the backyard, Chi Ting carried a bucket of water from the foot bath outside and poured it out. Suddenly, she pulled her neck in. The western wing was too quiet tonight, which made her actions seem too loud. It was fortunate that Granny Lu did not come out to scold her. She tiptoed and planned to return to her room when she suddenly heard a roof tile move. Following this, a dark figure swung down, startling her and making her want to scream. "Don't scream. It was Master who told me to come and ask you how are things progressing." The person in black covered her mouth and looked over at the bamboo forest near the western wing. "It's inconvenient to speak here. I will wait for you in the bamboo forest." After saying this, the figure in black disappeared from the top of the roof. Chi Ting was quite badly shaken. Thinking of how he had mentioned his master, could it be that he had been sent by Yin Shuo? When he had told her to return to Marquis Gu's manor, he only told her that he would find a chance to send someone to communicate with her. He told her to first gain the trust of everyone in Marquis Gu's manor. Yes, it had to be someone sent by Yin Shuo. Chi Ting rejoiced. Taking the chance when nobody was around, she quietly walked out of the western wing's rear entrance. Not far in the distance, a candle burned bright, as Yu Fu saw everything through a partially opened window. Sure enough, there was a problem with her. Chi Ting walked into the bamboo forest. It was dark all around, and she was a little bit frightened. After taking a few steps further, she still could not find the person in black and could only begin looking around. Suddenly, she heard some movement from above. Frightened, she let out a soft cry and fell to the ground. It was only then that she realized that the person in black had descended from above. Chi Ting patted her chest. "Was it eldest young sir who sent you?" The person in black furrowed his brow. Fortunately, his face was obscured by cloth, and Chi Ting could not see his facial features. She continued on her own. "Things have not been progressing smoothly. That girl, Yu Fu, actually demoted me to handle physical labor, so I spend my days doing dirty and tiring work. I can't even leave the western wing, so how could I possibly keep an eye on Lord Marquis and the heir? I think that she is suspicious of me, so it's pointless for me to stay in Marquis Gu's manor. Quickly have the eldest young sir take me away." The person in black looked at her strangely. "What eldest young sir? Keep an eye on what? Could it be that she had not been sent by Kun Wushang to poison Gu Huaijiang?" After just a moment of hesitation, the person in black had already decided on what to say. He quietly said, "Even if you don't leave the western wing, you should have heard a bit about what is happening in the manor. Tell me about them. As for whether or not to take you away, I will let the eldest young sir know." Chi Ting heard this and happily said, "Then I will trouble you with it. In recent days, there hasn't been anything." "Oh, there was something. I seem to hear that Lord Marquis was poisoned, and not even Imperial Physician's son could figure out what poison it was, but who knows if it's true or not. Gu Huaijiang was poisoned. Do you know anything about it? I have been handling manual labor in the western wing. When would I get a chance to find anything out? I can't even get close to Yu Fu." Speaking about it like this, she was not the one who poisoned Gu Huaijiang. The eldest young sir that she mentioned also could not be Kun Wushang. Yu Fu was right to suspect her. She was indeed hiding something, but it was completely unrelated to Gu Huaijiang's poisoning. He had gone searching for spices and found gold instead. He had ended up finding an agent that someone else had planted in Marquis Gu's manor. The person in black sneered and pressed his sword against Chi Ting's neck. "Tell me, who is this eldest young sir you spoke of?" Suddenly, torches illuminated the bamboo forest, and the situation changed. Chi Ting's eyes grew large with fear. You weren't sent by the eldest young sir." The person in black removed his mask and revealed an expressionless face. It was as if it had been covered in a layer of frost. It was none other than Gu Hanamo. The people carrying torches approached from all sides, and Gu Shubai patted Gu Hanmo's shoulder. I've troubled you with this, third brother. You rarely come to the Western Wing, so Chi Ting recognizes you the least. I could only have you come and play this role. Chi Ting watched all of this play out before her. She had been caught, and this was Gu Shubai's trap. Gu Hanamo coldly put his sword away. This sort of disloyal servant, eldest brother, you must not let her off lightly. Even if she did not poison father, she is definitely working for one of Marquis Gu's manor's enemies. Chi Ting's legs became weak, as she grabbed Gu Shubai's arm. Eldest young sir, I haven't. How could I dare to poison Lord Marquis? I also haven't done anything that would be detrimental to Marquis Gu's manor. I haven't had a chance to. Smack dash, Qian put all of his strength into a slap, delivering a strike straight to Chi Ting's face. She was caught off guard and was knocked to the ground. Chi Zhou grabbed Qian. The latter was already getting old and was gasping for air. You scoundrel. Why haven't you confessed yet? Who told you to poison Lord Marquis? Grandfather, I really didn't poison Lord Marquis. Eldest young Serene only told me to return to the manor and to think of a way to keep an eye on Lord Marquis and the eldest young sir, but I really could not. Eldest young Serene. Gu Shubai and Gu Hanamo exchanged a look. Both of them reached an understanding. Chi Ting was an agent inserted into Marquis Gu's manor by Yin Shua, but she had no knowledge of the poison. It seemed that Yu Fu's speculation was correct. The most likely person that remained was Kun Wushang. The poison is getting worse. In the main hall, Yu Fu pulled her silver needles out of Gu Huaijiang's neck. The area that produced black needles had spread a great deal. She would perform acupuncture for him every day. The toxicity of the poison was clearly under control, but the poison continued to spread. There was only one possibility that remained. The poison was still at play. Chi Zhou walked forward and said, Young Miss Yu Fu, that's not possible. Chi Ting has already been locked up. It's impossible for her to be the one who poisoned Lord Marquis. This servant tests Lord Marquis food every day before it is served. If there was any poison, this servant would also be poisoned. Yu Fu said, Steward Chi Ting is not the one who carried out the poisoning. I trust your loyalty, but have you ever inspected the things in this main hall? Gu Shubai and Gu Jiugu were waiting to the side, and Gu Jiugu said, Steward Chi and I inspected everything here. There definitely aren't any problems. Since there's nothing wrong with his food or with the things that he uses on a daily basis, how exactly did the perpetrator have father come into contact with the poison? Gu Huaijiang got up from the bed and put his clothes on. These past few days, I have stayed in the manor. Aside from the main hall, I have been in the outer study. Yu Fu, do you think the perpetrator might have done something inside the outer study? Outer study. Right, it must be the outer study. Yu Fu had a sudden realization, the outer study is a place that the servants cannot enter. That's why we never thought of investigating it. But Kun Wushang did indeed go in, right? Saying this, she ran out of the main hall and rushed straight for the outer study. Gu Huaijiang waved his hand, you guys go too. When everyone reached the outer study, Yu Fu only allowed them to stand there and look. They were not allowed to touch anything. It's very likely that this is where Kun Wushang used the poison. Have you guys come to the outer study recently? While she searched through the bookshelves, she questioned Gu Shubai and the others without looking at them. Gu Shubai said, we did indeed come, but we never looked through any of the books, nor have we sorted through any of the reports. Second brother and I have not been poisoned. If the poison is in the outer study, father must have touched something that we have not. In the past few days, what had Gu Huaijiang touched that the two of them had not? Yu Fu looked through the various bookshelves, then turned to Gu Huaijiang's desk. There were many reports that had not yet been handled and some that had been taken care of. These past few days, he had not attended court, but he was unwilling to stop working. From time to time, he would come to the outer study to take care of some work. She slowly approached the desk, and a strange odor entered her nose. Come and have a smell. What is this smell? Everyone went over, and Qi Zhou copied Yu Fu, leaning over the desk and carefully sniffing. He tightly furrowed his brow. It smells a little like wood shavings. The desk in Lord Marquis' outer study is made of rosewood. It should not crack or be damaged by bugs. Where is this smell coming from? Gu Shubai and the others also went to smell it. They were only able to smell something was off after this reminder from Qi Zhou. It seems to be the smell of wood shavings, but I can't be certain. If not for your reminder, I fear that father and I would not have noticed anything off. Yu Fu looked at Gu Shubai. Steward Qi has always taken great care in taking care of the manor. It's natural that he would be a little more familiar with the smells than you guys. If I had not studied poisons from a young age, I fear that I would not have noticed it either. This isn't the smell of wood shavings at all. Instead, it's the smell of a crushed poisonous bug that eats wood. Its name is tree crawler. Gu Jiugu said, poisonous bug. Saying it like that, father was poisoned by a big. Yu Fu used a handkerchief to wipe the top of the desk, then extended her hand and blocked everyone off. Let's go out first to speak. Don't send the official work to the outer study during the coming days. If any important matters come in, send them straight to the main hall. Steward Qi, have the outer study put under observation. Don't let anyone accidentally go in and get poisoned. Qi Zhou hastily complied, yes, young miss. Everyone exited the outer study before Yu Fu said, Head General was not poisoned by a bug. The tree crawler is a type of poisonous bug that eats wood and has a gentle disposition. Like the poisonous butterfly, it's usually used to find poison. If it was used as a poison, and Head General was poisoned by that, there's nothing to worry about. What is worrying is if it's crushed then spread on a desk. A gentle bug naturally has a way of protecting itself. The tree crawler's preservation technique is to release a slow-acting and toxic poison upon being crushed. Gu Shubai said, regardless, at the very least, we know what poison is afflicting father. Yu Fu, do you have a way of treating the tree crawler's poison? Yu Fu let out a long sigh, as her entire face bunched up from a frown. I can treat the tree crawler's poison, but the desk didn't just have the tree crawler's poison, there were also other poisons. I need to take this back and carefully research them for a few days to figure out what medicines are needed to treat Head General. As she said this, she pulled out the handkerchief that had been balled up. Unfortunately, not much of the poison can be found after the desk had been wiped down every day. I can only try and differentiate it based on the smell. Unfortunately, the smell of the tree crawler poison is too strong, basically masking the smell of the other poisons. Even if she was an immortal practitioner of poison, doing something like this was quite difficult. They all felt uneasy, but they had to keep up their smiles in front of Yu Fu to comfort her and let her know that there was no need to worry. Whether or not Gu Huaijiang could be treated rested with Yu Fu. At the moment, they could not allow her to get flustered. After watching her leave, Gu Shubai and Gu Jiugu exchanged a look. Their forced smiles slowly disappeared. Eldest brother, that night, you said that a storm was on the horizon. Who knew that it really came true? On the night of the birthday banquet, Kun Wushang was drawn to the outer study, but who knew that he would actually leave something like this behind? We underestimated him too greatly. Gu Shubai said, he is a prince of Western Kun. Western Kun dreads the Gu family's army the most. Once his poisoning was successful, he would be someone who made great contributions to Western Kun. Even if it's not enough to claim the position of Crown Prince, it should provide him with the ability to compete for more power. Gu Jiogu sneered, the people of Western Kun have always been ambitious. I fear that news of father's poisoning has already spread, leading to a large battle breaking out on the border. At that time, who would Eastern Ling dispatch to fight that battle? Yin Shua's assassination attempt failed, and he actually bribed Shi Ting to keep an eye on the manor. Eldest brother, look at how father wholeheartedly served the country, yet the court repay him like this. Shou. Gu Shubai said, Yin Shua is Yin Shua, and the court is the court. He has a personal grudge against Marquis Gu's manor, while His Majesty and the members of court will understand Marquis Gu's manor's loyalty. Right now, treating father is what's most important. I hope that Yu Fu can quickly figure out what medicine is needed to treat him. Gu Jioga's expression remained dejected. I fear that it will be difficult. Eldest brother, did you notice Yu Fu's expression earlier? Has she ever not been full of confidence when treating a poison, having everything under her control? This time, she had her brow tightly furrowed and looked as worried as we are. Gu Shubai thought back to his time in the cave in Changzhou. At that time, Yu Fu was full of confidence and almost braggingly said, to poison the people at my side, I will have them see who is more poisonous. That was how Yu Fu treated these sorts of problems. This time, her attitude was indeed filled with uncertainty. Gu Shubai let out a sigh and calmed himself. Gu Huaijiang had been poisoned, and the people of Marquis Gu's manor were feeling uneasy. His siblings and the servants of the manor were looking to him, the eldest son. He absolutely must not panic. He patted Gu Jioga's shoulder. Yu Fu is right. If she can't treat father's poison, she will invite the deity of medicine to personally come and treat him. Father will definitely be fine. Don't worry. Gu Jiogu, however, said, I know that Yu Fu is the deity of medicine's beloved disciple, but would she really be able to convince the deity of medicine to come? I have heard that the deity of medicine almost never leaves Immortal's Valley. Before the late Empress died of illness, His Majesty sent someone to Immortal's Valley to bring him over, but he never came. It was only the previous Empress Dowager who received treatment from the deity of medicine, and she lived until she was 80 before passing away. Since that time, has eldest brother heard any word of the deity of medicine leaving the valley? Gu Shubai nodded with a smile, indeed, I have not. But if Yu Fu said it, she can definitely do it. Yu Fu sullenly walked toward the western wing. Yaolan walked behind her, not daring to carelessly speak out. She had followed Yu Fu since she was little and knew that she was currently feeling conflicted. Yaolan, in the end, I implicated the head general. She did not enter the western wing. Instead, she sat down in the corridor outside the courtyard. I never thought that he would be implicated, not by my identity, but because of my connection with Kun Wushang. If not for the fact that we came from the same place, he would never have had the chance to poison head general. Yaolan shook her head like a pellet drum. How can this be blamed on young miss? If young miss was not here, he would be even more unscrupulous with poisoning Lord Marquis. It's fortunate that young miss is here to help Lord Marquis fend off the poison. If not for that, I fear that he would have already died from the poison. Yu Fu rested her chin in her hands and planted her arm on the bench's armrest. She then bunched up her face. Yaolan looked carefully. These past few days, Yu Fu had been looking through medical books late into the night, and her face had become quite a bit thinner. There was not much flesh left on her. She hurriedly comforted her, young miss, don't think about it so much. This wasn't a result of being implicated. As for your identity, didn't the last letter from the deity of medicine say that the situation was improving, and there won't be anyone searching for you, so young Miss can return to Immortals Valley at any time? Yu Fu said, but I want to stay in Eastern Ling and Marquis Gu's manor even more. Either way, Kun Wushang is not a good person. Master often said that he has bad intentions, and I only thought that he was some aloof idiot. I never thought that he would use such a dirty tactic. Yaolong muttered to herself, but what she said was unclear. Yu Fu looked at her. What did you say? Yaolong spoke up a little louder. I was saying that he has always treated young Miss very well. That's why young Miss couldn't see that he had bad intentions. Even a maidservant like her, who had always been at Yu Fu's side, would often receive some benefits from Kun Wushang while in Immortals Valley. He would help with drying herbs and would often give her delicious pastries. All of this was for the sake of getting in Yu Fu's good graces. Even after he found out about Yu Fu's true identity, his attitude toward her never changed. While he called her little senior disciple, his attitude toward Yu Fu was that of an older brother. He was affectionate and humorous. Yaolong could only think these things to herself and could not say them now. She knew that Yu Fu was currently angry at Kun Wushang. Right now, she would absolutely refuse to listen to such things. Yu Fu said, "Right, the letter that I had you send a few days ago, has it been sent?" Yaolong nodded. "Young Miss, don't worry. Our communications with Immortals Valley have always been very secure. The Valley will surely send a reply very soon. As long as Kun Wushang returned to Immortals Valley, the deity of medicine will surely punish him very severely for young Miss." Yu Fu ferociously said, "That bastard." Achoo! Western Kun's 7th Prince's Manor. Kun Wushang was drying herbs in the courtyard and suddenly sneezed. A servant eagerly stepped forward. "Your Highness, what's wrong? How about leaving something as menial as drying herbs to this servant? Your Highness has a noble status and are not suited to doing such things." Because he had contributed by getting the Prime Minister of Eastern Ling removed, he was rewarded by Western Kun. He had also been assigned more power, taking control of matters related to the Board of Revenue. Of course, Emperor Kun only knew that Yin Yen was capable but did not know that the newly appointed Yin Shuo was even more capable. The Board of Revenue was responsible for the census and finances. It was the same as having a grasp on Western Kun's lifeline. The people who previously looked down on Kun Wushang naturally changed their tunes. Even the servants in the manor became much more attentive. He spent long periods of time at Immortals Valley and very rarely returned to Western Kun. The 7th Prince's manor was usually quite desolate. When he occasionally returned, the servants would only put in a minimal amount of effort, and they would not serve him very attentively. What was the point of attentively serving a prince of lowly birth with no real power who only returned to Western Kun for a few days before leaving once more? Now, things were different. There were some officials who began commenting that since Emperor Kun had given control of the Board of Revenue to Kun Wushang, he was guarding himself against the Crown Prince. Although Emperor Kun was not young, he was still full of vigor. It seemed that he still had another 10 to 20 birthdays. Although he had already announced a Crown Prince, he was reluctant to relinquish his power and allow the Crown Prince to take over. Kun Wushang's contributions allowed Emperor Kun an excuse to divert some of the Crown Prince's power, thus he gave away the Board of Revenue, which was the most important department. He waved his hand and said with indifference, "There's no need. I often handle these things on my own in Immortals Valley and have become accustomed to it." The servant wanted to curry favor with him but was coldly refused. He could only retreat. "But this prince sees that you are thorough in the way that you handle things. In the future, you will be in charge of the guards in the front yard. How about it?" The servant who believed that he had failed to curry favor with him suddenly heard Kun Wushang bring this up. He happily turned toward him. Regardless of what he was in charge of, as long as he was in charge of something in the 7th Prince's manor, that would mean being promoted to steward. From that moment on, he would be a figure of importance in the manor. The servant was extremely thankful. "Many thanks, Your Highness." After that servant left, Qin Wushang's personal guard came forward and was very dissatisfied. "Your Highness, the people in this manor have always obeyed the powerful and trampled on those below them. They're only currying favor now that Your Highness has gained influence. Why bother giving them any benefits? The benefits must be handed out. If they aren't, how could anyone want to work hard for me?" Qin Wushang flipped the herbs while saying, "My guards in the inner courtyard will still be under your command. As for the other parts of the manor, they aren't important. I fear that this stay in the country will last for quite some time. You will need to put some effort into managing the manor's guards." The guard said in shock, "Your Highness won't be returning to Immortals Valley." Qin Wushang self-mockingly laughed, "If I go back now, I'm afraid that Master will beat me to death. I'm not going to try to die." Ever since figuring out the source of the poison, Gu Huaijiang's condition improved significantly. Yu Fu did not allow him to enter the outer study, thus he often spent time looking through reports in the main hall. He suddenly saw Qian enter to make a report. "Lord Marquis, news has come from the palace. His Majesty's illness has gotten worse." Even though Gu Huaijiang was not going into the palace, he was still very worried about Emperor Ning's condition. Hearing that Emperor Ning was getting worse, he hastily put down his book. His Majesty only caught a cold. How could it get worse? Qian said, "The imperial physician said that it did indeed just start as a cold. However, His Majesty is older and was constantly feeling anxious, thus the cold got worse. Today, His Majesty became dizzy before court, and today's morning court session had to be cancelled." Gu Huaijiang did not understand medicine. Why would His Majesty constantly feel anxious? Even when it came to appointing a new prime minister or selecting a crown prince, he had never been anxious before. Now that the situation in court is improving with each day, what could cause any anxiety? The imperial physician's explanation was a little too suspicious. Gu Huaijiang thought for a moment and remembered his own case. "When I was poisoned, didn't imperial physician's son also say that my cough was caused by a pathogen entering my body?" Qian was stunned. "Lord Marquis means to say His Majesty might not simply have a cold." Gu Huaijiang said, "Go and bring the eldest young sir in. I have some instructions to give." Not long later, the sound of Gu Shubai's hurried footsteps came from the courtyard. "Father, are you feeling unwell?" Gu Huaijiang shook his head and waved to have him approach. "I am very well. Father has a task for you to take care of." "Right, bring Yu Fu with you." In the large imperial palace, Yu Fu stuck close to Gu Shubai's side and headed toward Emperor Ning's bed chamber. It was the beginning of spring, and it was starting to get warmer. Gu Shubai was already wearing thin spring clothing. It was a simple but elegant pale blue robe. When the occasional gust of wind blew past, his collar would quiver and reveal his collarbone. The palace maids that saw him would blush then lower their heads. When he passed by them, they would secretly sneak another look. Yu Fu stayed at his side and saw that he had a completely indifferent expression and did not seem to know that the palace maids were looking at him. How could he not know? He was even able to notice when she took a deep breath. To say that his martial ability is exceptional would not be an exaggeration. It was likely because he had grown accustomed to it, right? Yu Fu suddenly grabbed a hold of his hand, making Gu Shubai look down at her. "What is it?" It was that very gentle voice that caused a hushed cry to come from the palace maids nearby. Who knew just how many young girls' hearts trembled from hearing it? Marquis Gu's air really is gentle, treating his little sister so well. If I had such a gentle older brother, how nice would that be? If you were as beautiful as young Miss Yu Fu, there would be no shortage of young men who would want to treat you this gently. The gentleness that the heir shows is not the kind that one shows a younger sister. Have you not heard? Lord Marquis Gu wants to engage young Miss Yu Fu to the heir. Some girls were heartbroken and grieved as if they were victims of a disaster. Yu Fu smiled and lifted her head. It's nothing. The palace is too large, and I was worried about getting lost. Gu Shubai held her hand a little tighter, completely ignoring everyone else's eyes. Come with me. Passing through the long and winding corridor, Emperor Ning's palace came into view. Arriving outside the hall, Eunuch Gao personally came forward. Eldest young sir, young Miss Yu Fu, His Majesty is feeling a bit better today. Please quickly come in. I fear that His Majesty might pass out soon. Gu Shubai said, Has His Majesty been passing out often in recent days? Eunuch Gao sighed. Just thinking about Emperor Ning's illness gave him a headache, that's right. Who knows what's wrong? A number of imperial physicians have examined him, but they could not see what problems there were with the cold. As he said this, they suddenly saw Yin Shuo walk up from the back. Eunuch Gao stepped forward and saluted him. Prime Minister Yin. Gu Shubai also stepped forward to greet him. Yin Shuo was already the Prime Minister. This position was higher than his as an heir. Yin Shuo modestly returned the greeting. I just came over from court and wanted to visit His Majesty. It's truly a coincidence to see eldest young sir here. Even young Miss Yu Fu is here. Yu Fu bowed. Greetings, Prime Minister. She had a respectful and distant attitude. After an eventful winter, her tender face had lost some of its childishness and become a great deal more beautiful. Yin Shuo had not seen her for a long time and suddenly remembered the night that he had seen them at Westlake, and Yu Fu had said that she remembered him. At that time, the smile on her face was childish and warm. She did not put up any barriers to protect herself from others. Thinking about it, she had been in Eastern Ling for nearly a year. For such a smart girl, 1 year was more than enough time to learn that people were not so easy to understand. He felt a little disappointed. Who knew if this intelligence was a good thing or a bad thing? It was only after a bit of time that he found his voice. Congratulations, young Miss Yu Fu, you've grown taller and become more beautiful. Yu Fu felt at a loss. Why was it that everyone spoke to her like an older brother? The eldest prince and the second prince were like this, and Yin Shuo was also like this. They were all a bit older than her, and they were all trying to curry favor with Marquis Gu's manner, which left her with no excuse to refuse them. Many thanks, Prime Minister Yin, for the compliment. I also wish to congratulate Prime Minister on the promotion. The three exchanged pleasantries outside the hall before Eunuch Gao led them inside. Yin Shuo walked at the front, while Gu Shubai and Yu Fu walked at the back. The two happened to be able to see Yin Shuo's back. He was young, but he was wearing the red official robes that only a first-rank official could wear. Adding in the official's hat, there was nothing that did not show off his nobility. This person in red robes wanted to kill eldest brother. Yu Fu thought about this. Thinking about Gu Huaijiang's warning, she internally distanced herself from Yin Shuo. Author's note, I've suddenly thought of a problem. What does everyone think is different about the gentle kindness shown by the eldest brother and the fourth brother? You guys came. Emperor Ning lay in bed under a thick blanket. His face was pale, and he looked as if he had aged 10 years. Gu Shubai glanced at Eunuch Gao. If this was considered being better, Emperor Ning's illness was quite severe. It was no wonder Gu Huaijiang specially told him to bring Yu Fu into the palace to visit. Everyone saluted him, and Emperor Ning covered his mouth and coughed. Humph, please be seated. There's no need to stand on ceremony. Yu Fu rarely entered the palace, and Emperor Ning squinted his eyes to look at her. He felt that she had matured a great deal from before. Like a flower, she was blooming beautifully. He nodded his head with gratification. "Yu Fu, we see that you've grown a great deal taller and are becoming more and more beautiful." "Yu Fu. Thank you, Your Majesty, for the compliment." Ever since Emperor Ning found out that she wanted to marry Gu Shubai, who knew if he felt that she was no longer a threat to Eastern Ling, or if he knew that her claim of having studied in Immortals Valley was not false, but his attitude toward her had improved significantly. Emperor Ning then turned to Gu Shubai. "The children are all grown up. We and your father have also gotten old. I heard that your father has also been bedridden with illness. We had Imperial Physician Sun visit to take care of him. How has he been doing recently?" Gu Shubai quickly glanced at Yu Fu, and the latter kept her head down while sitting to the side. If Emperor Ning did not ask about him, she would never speak up. His expression remained unmoved, and he looked like he did not know about the situation. "Many thanks, Your Majesty, for the concern. Father caught a cold that gave him coughing fits. There aren't any major problems, but the illness keeps coming back, so the Imperial Physician advised that he stay home for a few more days. Father wanted to come into the palace to see Your Majesty, but he was also worried that he might pass his illness on to Your Majesty, thus he could only have this subject come and visit with Yu Fu." Emperor Ning heard this and smiled, saying, It's fine. The two of us are one and the same. We are also worried about passing our illness on to him. Look at Imperial Consort Xian. Who knows if she has exhausted herself from taking care of us or if she caught our illness. She could no longer support herself and returned to her palace to be taken care of by an imperial physician. It's nice to be young, as you're all sturdier than old bones like us. He smiled and looked at the three, just like a normal elder would look at those of the younger generation. It was only now that Yin Shuo cupped his hands and said, "Your Majesty has been emperor for a long time. It's just a small illness, and you will quickly recover." Emperor Ning said, "We are not worried. Court has the two of you present, so even if Marquis Gu and I are sick for a few days, nothing will be neglected." The two that he mentioned were Gu Shubai and Yin Shuo. One civil official and one military official, one general and one prime minister, both were Eastern Ling's outstanding talents from the younger generation. All that was missing was a crown prince. Once the crown prince was appointed, the next generation of Eastern Ling would officially begin. Gu Shubai and Yin Shuo politely smiled but did not look at each other. Yu Fu suddenly stood up from her seat. "Your Majesty, I heard that the Linin Temple near West Lake is very effective, so I went and prayed for blessings and protection for Your Majesty and Head General. This is a talisman that the Master Abbot. I hope that Your Majesty will not mind." She was quite filial. Emperor Ning looked at her with approval, and Eunuch Gao received the talisman from her. After determining that there was nothing wrong with it, he was about to put it away. Yu Fu said, "Master Abbot said that it only works if one sincerely believes it. The one who made the prayer will personally place it beneath Your Majesty's pillow. It will be good for Your Majesty's illness. I personally placed one below Head General's pillow yesterday. Today, he said that he slept until the sun came up and is feeling much better. Is it that effective?" Emperor Ning already had a bit of faith in religion. Hearing Yu Fu say this, he gave Eunuch Gao a look. Eunuch Gao handed the talisman back to Yu Fu. "Then I will trouble young Miss Yu Fu." Yu Fu carefully folded the talisman and walked toward Emperor Ning's bed. Yin Shuo's gaze focused on Yu Fu. From his angle, he could clearly see Yu Fu's actions. He saw her lift Emperor Ning's wrist from next to the pillow and gently move it to the side before lifting a corner of the pillow and placing the folded talisman beneath it. After that, she returned Emperor Ning's hand to where it was before. A look of approval appeared in Eunuch Gao's eyes. Although she was young, she was very thorough and considerate. It was no wonder everyone in Marquis Gu's manor doted on her so much. Who knew if it was a psychological effect or something else, but after Yu Fu placed the talisman under his pillow, Emperor Ning's complexion immediately improved a great deal. He shifted his head around a bit, looking for a comfortable position. Yu Fu, you really are considerate. In the past, Marquis Gu doted on you so much, yet we felt that he was obsessed. After hearing that he engaged you to Shubai, we finally found out what he was planning. But, he's the one who got lucky. A marriage to Immortals Valley, it's not something that the average person can hope for. Yin Shuo's expression momentarily became stiff. Thinking about how Yu Fu walked alongside Gu Shubai in the palace and how the two intimately spent their days together in Marquis Gu's manor, he felt a discomfort in his heart. Yu Fu quietly walked back with a hint of embarrassment in her smile. Yu Fu does not have any other abilities and can only do my best to learn to ensure that the people in the manor are not harmed by any poisons. You are too modest. We still remember the day that you played the zither. It was immediately clear just how much effort the deity of medicine put into raising you. After chatting for a while, Emperor Ning needed to rest, and everyone retreated from the bed chamber. Yin Shuo cupped his hands to the other two. There are still some matters to attend to in court, so I won't be keeping you two company. Farewell. Right as he left, his gaze briefly lingered on Yu Fu. Unfortunately, Yu Fu did not notice. However, Gu Shubai noticed him acting strangely. Yu Fu, is there a problem? He looked around and lowered his voice to ask Yu Fu. When she had given the talisman, she had checked Emperor Ning's pulse. It was only for a brief moment, so it was unclear if she found anything. Yu Fu's voice was even lower than his majesty was poisoned. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.